Anti-derivative Jill.
There she is. There she is.
Jim, he's you.
That's impossible. The bridge is empty. It was filled with dead crewmen the last time I was here.
Are you even a captain when you have no crew?
One man, two minds.
One of those minds was tampering with the other.
The moon's destabilizing, sir. We're experiencing undertow from both singularities.
Captain, a Klingon vessel has just entered the system.
Because your world always looked like this.
It is as it has always been.
Look at me! Look at me. Keep your eyes on me. Doctor, when we launch that probe, the Hyalini will see in full, revealing color.
Their world is in turmoil. Technological innovation fueled solely by the desire to build more lethal weapons.
You stand here before me lecturing me about compassion. Who do you think you are?
And hello and welcome to Indefinite Lunch in Infinite Combinations number 110. I'm Anti-Derivative Jill, and we're going to have a really, really great show today. I am watching Star Trek Continues for the first time and sharing my thoughts about it with you. So I would like to welcome my co-host Dan Leckie. Thank you for being here today. And Dan Leckie, well, and you blow me away because with the friends that you have who actually work on real Star Trek, today we are extremely lucky to have Judy Burns with us. It's so amazing because she wrote the Tholian Web with her friend Chet Richards. And so, you know, all of the Star Trek fans were extremely privileged to enjoy her writing again when she wrote Still Treads the Shadow for Star Trek Continues, which works as a sequel to the Tholian Web. And so thank you so much for agreeing to be here, Judy.
Hey, my pleasure.
Of course. And Judy Burns also worked on lots of different TV shows too that a lot of you may know, or at least a lot of you have been telling me to watch these. Magnum PI, Mission Impossible, and The Bionic Woman, Knight Rider, T.J. Hooker, which of course also has William Shatner, and MacGyver.
Yeah, that's a piece of them.
And so, if anybody has any questions, even if it's not about Star Trek, about any of the other work that she's done or something, you may ask in the chat, and I will star your comments to ask. So, what inspired you to write the Tholian Web for the original series?
Let's see. Money. No, I know it sounds very crass, but when I was in college, I was trying to get to Africa to dig bones. And I was planning to go with Louis Leakey, who was one of the great paleoanthropologists, archaeologists of his time. And he had agreed to take me, but I needed $2,500 to get to Africa. So I liked Star Trek. I thought, I'll find out how much you can get for writing one of these, and I'll just write one. I was so naive. I had no idea. You just don't do that. So I wrote a script with another friend and managed to get it to an agent. And there's something called synchronicity, which I think is really interesting in my case, because at the time I was tutoring Buddy Ebsen's children in mathematics. And I asked Buddy Ebsen, who was a great old movie star, and he was also on, not Daniel Boone, but the other one with Fess Parker. And he knew the writer, and the writer, Tom Blackburn, did something they never do. He read the script, and he picked up his phone and called his agent, Polly Connell, and said, I think I have a writer for you. And within a couple of days, I was up in Hollywood talking to this agent who happened to also have been Walt Disney's story editor. And she took me on. She turned that script in, and it disappeared into the toilet or the next week's paper basket. It was so bad. I didn't know how bad it was, but it was bad. And
What?
so I immediately sat down and wrote another one. And this time I met Chet and said, I want to tell a ghost story. How can I do it? And that's what
Yeah, that's
happened.
right. Yeah, that is, and that is such a great. It's one of the shining episodes of season 3, and it doesn't even feel like a season 3 episode. It feels like it could fit right into season 2.
Well, it's because it was written during season 2.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
But it worked out pretty well because, once again, synchronicity. You almost have to feel fate intervening because I was going to use the Irvine and poor as a church mouse. That's why I was tutoring everywhere. And they offered a
Right.
screenwriting class through extension. I was so poor, I couldn't afford that class. But I took my pieces of my little script and went to meet Bob Duncan, who was the teacher. He and his wife, Wanda, had worked on a lot of shows in town. And they said, okay, you can come, sit down, be quiet, don't say anything, and just listen. So I did, and I saved up all my money. And over the course of 1 year, worked on that script. And at the end of that time, I said, I'm afraid it's going to go into the wastebasket the same as the other one. And he says, well, as it turns out, I know Freddie Freiberger. We worked on Wild Wild West or something like that together. So I'll call and see where that script is, at least. So he called Freddie Freiberger, went looking through the scripts, handed it to Bobby Justman. Bobby Justman wrote an 8-page memo, and the next day I got a phone call and they were going to buy it.
Oh, well, that is really great. Okay, see, that's wonderful that you worked with Bob Justman because he's
I,
one of the
l-
heroes.
I love Bobby. He is the reason I got a career. And
Well,
and he
that,
turned
and
out to be a
also
friend
you
many
learned on
times.
the fly. That's amazing.
You have no idea. I
That is
mean,
really impressive. A TV script,
seriously,
I can do that. So
that
you did it.
and that's the point. If you don't know you can't do it, oftentimes the door opens. And it turns out the same kind of synchronicity happened with Mission Impossible. I immediately turned around while I had not sold the Star Trek, wrote a mission, and so sold the Star Trek. Mission Impossible was upstairs from Star Trek at the same studio, and I got a call saying they want to meet you. And so I went upstairs, and it turned out the story editor, Paul Playton, had been going through a bunch of scripts, and they had just done a script called Doomsday, and this script was called Resurrection. So I picked it up and read it, and I had a job.
Wow.
So that's how things work.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That it just happens that way, and you were just tutoring the right kids.
Just tutoring the right children. Exactly. I'd spent almost a year teaching them algebra. and,
Nice.
and
Yeah, I used to
going
be a
down.
math tutor too when I was in university. So
Hmm,
that's amazing.
that's where I was, university. It was down at UC Irvine. And they lived just down the hill over in Newport Beach. So it
Yeah.
worked out pretty well, but it was a very strange way to break in. I've never seen anybody else break in quite that way.
So this question comes from Dan Leckie, who's here with us on the panel. He says, "Can you tell us about the original version of this episode? Do you recall how different it was from how the episode turned out?"
Are you talking about Still Treads the Shadow?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, when Mark Cushman, who I believe, originally called, he said, can you want to pitch some ideas to Vic, blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea what Star Trek Continues was. So I pitched a bunch of ideas and it went nowhere. Not that it really mattered because I wasn't supposed to write anything. This is, if you're in the Writers Guild, it gets real tricky. And so finally, I pitched the idea of 3 Kirks, and Vic just lit up. So then it became a question of what to do with it. And originally, it had Tholians in it, because I don't like the idea of things that just happen by accident. So the idea that we were in this space just to investigate black holes was not really part of it. We were there, but we had been called in by the Tholian Assembly because they didn't want to go there. and
Oh, right.
and so they knew what the interphase was, and they had no desire to get trapped there. But they sent us back to an area of space that was similar to the one we'd been in before. And there it was, the Defiant. There was no Hollister there, or as Hollister is the character that became Avi because they got this actress, and so they changed the name of the character. But Vic had a real problem with putting any woman in this script. First, he'd done this original love story in the very beginning about the three women of his life, or whatever it was. And he didn't feel like there was any place at all for another love story. So I was
He
channeled
didn't
out
want to
of
do
that.
too many romances.
Right, exactly. Especially since he was so invested in those original episodes, which I hadn't seen. And of course, in my world, Bill Shatner was always with somebody, but I had never had that in mind. I had in mind the idea of a teenage romance, kind of romance, which never went anywhere. And I kept pounding on that door and pounding on that door, and he would get pissed off. And so we went around and around and around because I needed stakes. And to me, for old Kirk to have stakes, he needed something from the past that meant something to him, not just the Enterprise, because he'd been on some version of a ship for a long time. And that person was a character that I could invest in.
Oh,
So,
okay. So
so
somebody
originally,
to
uh,
tie the duplicate Kirk with the regular Kirk.
exactly, exactly. And they had two different points of view. But this was not in the original because he wouldn't allow it. And so finally, I mean, a lot of the material, the dark matter material, this script was originally called Dark Matter because it was the basis for kind of the interdimensionality that was happening in the destruction of the Enterprise. And so it spent a lot of time on that and a lot less time on character development, except for the character development of the three Kirks. So it was a very different version of this script with a lot of the same stuff in it. Finally, I got so, excuse me, angry. I said, that's it, taking the script, running away. Goodbye. Not going to do this anymore.
Time to take your ball and go home because
Exactly,
you
because
had your idea.
I wasn't being paid. Because if I was paid, I couldn't do it. So I had to call the Writers Guild and get dispensation for doing it for the fans. So if I took any money, I would be scabbing. And I have no idea how other writers got around this problem, but my way of getting around it was to take no money so I could get up and walk away. And
That makes
so
sense.
he relented, and I wrote the script the way I wanted to write it. But then he didn't want to do it that way. And so finally I said, look, let's do a table read. And if the table read says they don't like this, I will go back to the original script and revise it the way you want it. But if they like it, you have to do this one. And so we met in Hollywood. And this thing is shot in Kingston or whatever it was, King something or other. But we met in Hollywood, actually Van Nuys, I think. And there were about 15 of us around the table, and we read it as a real table read like we would in the studio. And at the end, with a few notes from James Kerwin and a couple of three others, they all agreed it was a great read. And so Vic said, okay, let's just do it. And that's what happened. So they
Great.
shot it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah, it
that's a
had a,
difficult thing to bring in a new character that nobody knows and have her have this close relationship with Kirk without knowing exactly who she is for part of the episode. And I think it was a really clever way to make her be a consultant scientist.
yes. And the whole idea is that each of these men knew her in a different way. One had gone through life just thinking of her as his best friend when they were 15 and going separate directions. And the other one had 80 years, so to speak, or 50 to actually reconsider the way he had handled her and to think that, and never to have gone through some of the loves probably that Kirk had gone through in the last year or so. And so he has not pedestalized her, but he's got this love interest in her in a way. And the
Yeah,
thing of
there's
it
got to
is
be
that
some nostalgia.
yeah, and she, for her part, looks at this person and says, "What if?" You know, he's lost everything, but what if? Which means she's invested in the old man, and so
Yeah.
it works for the ending of the piece, where she's willing to go with either one of them, and possibly die, or possibly live this horrible existence of nothingness in a way, just a ship, for the rest of her life. So it worked out for me. I like character.
Yeah, no, you did really well with the character. I really enjoyed all of how the characters reacted to older Kirk as if he were, a lost family member. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah,
When the scene where everybody's hugging and everything.
the other thing that I really liked, and I haven't seen this show since it was originally done. Just realized that I watched it for the first time in what, 8 years or 9 years. It was back in 2016 when this thing was written.
That's
So
right.
I,
I didn't even introduce this episode yet. I'm sorry. Still
oh
treads
well,
the
you want to go ahead and
shadows.
do that?
Yeah, Still Treads the Shadows first aired on April 2nd, 2017. It was written by you, Judy Burns, and directed by Julian Higgins. The episode description on the Star Trek The Expanded Universe site says the Enterprise discovers a lost starship on the edge of the interphasic portal with an unlikely passenger. Kirk and an old friend have to save the Enterprise. Meanwhile, the Wikipedia says the Enterprise discovers a lost starship on the edge of an interphasic portal. It carries an elderly duplicate Kirk, and its computer has become a rogue AI which sucks the Enterprise into the rift. But also, I on my channel, I do like to say hello to my chat if I can just get a moment to do that. And a Booger 414 says he'll have to watch it later. And I want to say hello to Franco Walker. Please subscribe, hit the bell, share, hit the like, and select like chat. Thank you, Franco. And also, Matt G is here, otherwise known as Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, MCU, and Doctor Who. He's going for having the longest name on YouTube. Hello to Classic Comics and Scotty R37. Let's see. Sentai Ranger Johnny. Hey, how are you doing today? And Tristan Mendoza. He usually doesn't get a chance to be in the chat. Hello there. He's got to go do some errands. And so it's really great to see you all here. Good friend of the channel, Bird of Prey 5, Kapla. And let's see. I want to make sure I say hi to people here. Hello, Jill and Franco and everyone else. And Sean Carter puts in a membership chat. He's been a member for 7 months. He says, "This is wonderful. Thank you for coming on, Judy."
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes, and that's and Franco's needs some tea. And oh, yeah, and so whenever I'm talking about this episode, if there's anything you want to add, please do. Let's see. Oh, you sent in some. You talked to Vic, and he sent you some facts for the episode.
Yes,
And
yes, I sent them
um,
over to Dan. Very
yeah,
interesting.
they are very interesting. There are a few of them. I wonder, should I read them?
It's up to you. I can tell you a couple of them because I
Oh,
remember
sure.
them. The rest of them, you can tell people if you feel like it. When
Of
I talked
course.
to
These are
Vic,
great.
he basically said that because of the way things evolved with all of the studio stuff, with CBS and everything, it turned out they couldn't get to this episode until August. And anybody who's been down to the studios will know that it has no air conditioning. So they were going to die and maybe even not do the episode because they just couldn't survive that. They took as much money as they could and hired a band and every night the band would pipe in air conditioning into the studio, so it was 65 by the time they got to the studio, so they could shoot it. The other thing that he mentioned,
Oh,
I think
that's
it was
much better.
really important, is that he had these prosthetics that he had to wear. And if they took the prosthetics off, they would be ruined, and they could only afford two of those prosthetics. And so he wore them to bed at night so that they wouldn't take them off.
Oh
So he
my God.
slept in his
He
makeup.
slept as an older person.
He did. He slept
It's-
as an old man. And the other thing is that his I can't remember his name, like Dijkstra or something like that. His the person who stood in for him, when you saw the back of their head or the side, kind of a blurred version of the other Kirk, the old Kirk.
the stand-in.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, he basically took the used version of the prosthetics and they put it on his face so that there would be something there for him to wear while we weren't looking at him. So kind of interesting things, but plus a lot of other stuff that I didn't know. Oh,
Oh,
one
that's
more that I
clever.
remember.
That's really
Um,
clever. Sure.
they had written original music for a lot of episodes, but of course they were running out of money with this tremendous expense. It's a good thing it was a bottle show because it was all on the Enterprise and not having to go to a set somewhere. But let's see, what was it? Oh, the music. They decided to go back to the original Tholian web music and use those as their music cues for this episode, which would subliminally remind people of what the original idea was. If you got any more there, share them, please.
That's a gorgeous addition. I do love the way they handle the music on this show. Sometimes they create their own, and obviously, we know Vic has a full orchestra that he used to recreate all of this music or add new pieces, and I really enjoy the way that he integrates all of that. And I think this is a really great sequel, even without the Tholians themselves playing a role, although that would have been cool because we know they would have we would have gotten some punctuality out of them.
Just so you know, that was Leonard's line.
Oh yeah,
Leonard
yeah,
Leonard actually ad-libbed renowned Tholian punctuality.
and that was really great of you to to integrate that into the script. I was so
I
happy.
didn't. It was
Oh, you
on the set.
didn't?
I was
You did
standing
it on
there
the
when he
set.
did it. I went, okay, that's good. Thank you.
It gave the Tholians a bit of character.
It it did. It was interesting because the Tholians never turned out the way I expected them to turn out. They never looked like crabs in my world.
Oh, right. Okay, yes, because the characters in this episode don't know what happened to their Defiant, but of course we do because it first showed up. It finally showed up in the Enterprise episode, In a Mirror Darkly, and yes, they fleshed out what they believed the Tholians looked
Yeah,
like. And they do look like crabs.
I think that the comic books did that actually. I may be wrong. They had a whole
Oh, you
series of
know what?
comic books.
You're absolutely right. Haven't read the comic books and stuff, so that makes sense.
I haven't
But
either, but I understand that they turned them into crabs, and
oh, okay.
then the Enterprise actually used that and did it very effectively. But
Mhm.
in my world, they looked a little more like us, except they were crystalline.
Oh, right.
So that was going to be one of my questions, which was like, did you see the Enterprise two-parter in the Mirror Darkly before you wrote this Star Trek Continues episode?
Yeah, I never liked Enterprise. I'm sorry to say it was not my favorite show. I don't know why, but I did watch that episode because obviously they use Tholians and you never get paid for what you create. So I thought, well, what the hell? I'll take a look at it. You still don't get paid for what you create. But
Oh,
I thought it
that's
was a
too bad.
reasonably good episode. And so I was proud of them for what they did. But it didn't impact me very much in this one. I just needed a reason to get to this area of space. And so I had dumped them in because it wasn't happenstance. As I told you, I don't like happenstance. And in a way, this opening is, well, let's go to this area of space and look at this destabilization and this black hole or whatever. And oh, guess what? There's a Defiant there.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, listen to this heartbeat. There's something alive. They think it's in the moon, but really the moon's
Yes.
blown up.
Yes.
The moon blows up. If we
Yes, the
watch
moon
this,
blows
we'll
up.
see it.
But I
There
mean, it's
goes.
still happenstance. It just happens. So I'll never be quite happy with happenstance.
I
But it
do like
works.
your original idea to have the Tholians call them over. It gives them, but a lot of times.
Well, in a way, it complicated things because in the original idea, they did come back. So they once again were a threat akin to the ones that they wouldn't come into that area of space, but they were preventing us from getting out of there. So they
Right,
had
and then
they had
okay.
they had jeopardy for us, but that was long gone once the Tholians went away.
I thought it
And
was
I think it.
interesting. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry. Well, I think also it would have been probably copyright issues with recreating the Tholians for them, for Vic, and also they would have had to do some more animation or what have you. Mike Miner had originally created that Tholian Losine, and I don't think they could have recreated new Tholians without being expensive.
Well, that and then the web again. And I think the way that this was written, it was also good because the Enterprise was trapped again, but in a different way by the artificial intelligence this time instead of the Tholians.
Yes. Well, they were still trapped by the artificial intelligence, but we're trying to get out of there, and there's something on the inside trying to keep us, and there's something on the outside trying to prevent us from coming out. That's what it was. It was double jeopardy in the
Yeah, it
original
was also
concept.
the black hole, and
Yeah, the double
it was
black
also
hole.
pulling.
I thought the double black hole was kind of cool myself.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
I've been interested in multiverses since before it became fashionable. I think the Tholian Web
I
was one
think
of the first ones to deal with it. That one in the black and white,
mhm.
um, the episode where they had the reverse black and white characters.
Well, yeah,
You
they
remember
had
what?
Let that be your last battlefield.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the one where the voice actor played both characters, one black on one side and one white on the other side. It
Yes,
was a kind
Yeah.
of
that is
multiverse
the
one.
Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, but multiverse
Okay.
one? I haven't seen. Is that a fan series one? Because
No, that's an original canon
original
episode.
series. And I
And
don't remember
they,
them
you
being
know, it,
in a different alternate universe in that one.
No, I remember that from
well,
like the Lazarus episode.
well,
Oh,
that
that's alternative factor.
mirror,
Yes, of
or
course,
whatever.
mirror,
That was
mirror.
an alternative universe too,
Yes,
or whatever.
that was an alternate universe, definitely.
Yeah,
But
but I mean, it wasn't fashionable those days to think
Yeah.
of in terms of 10 or 12 or 20 different universes, like it is now with string theory.
right, exactly. Now a lot there, it's all over the place for sure. And so I want to ask about the major guest star of note in this episode, the one you fought so hard for, and you said, let's have a table. I love that story that you had to have a table reading to get her in here. And um, her name is Rekha Sharma,
Sharma.
and she
Yeah,
plays AB Samara. Did you help with her casting? And if not,
no,
did her casting help with how you wrote her character?
no. For me, it was the character's name was Hollister, and so Becky Hollister. But Vic knew this lovely actress, and he called me and said, "I've cast her, and so we're changing her name." And I said, "That's cool. That's great with me." But the script was written by that time; it was finished, and it turned out that she ended up apparently on Discovery afterwards. So that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really difficult to create a new character that viewers actually care about, and I think he did it splendidly, and she performed it really well.
Yeah, her lines really didn't change. It's just who she was changed because they really didn't go into her ethnic background. She just was somebody that
Well, and that's how
Kirk knew
Star
when
Trek
they were
is.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's perfect.
it is.
And I liked her a lot. She had really strong empathy. Plus, she had charisma.
Yeah, she sure
That's it.
did. She's really talented.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I need.
It's
Oh,
interesting,
there
just
was a
in passing.
question.
Go
Sure,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was
Has
going to say that while
oh,
I was on TJ Hooker,
mm,
the executive producer there said something interesting one day during dailies, and we were looking at Bill acting a scene, and he said, "Look at that guy. He literally grabs the screen and runs away with it. He's got charisma." And that's one of the things that struck me always with Bill Shatner, that he had that, and Dick has it too. That's one of the reasons he was able to pull it off. They both have this ability to suck you into their character. That's just in passing.
yeah, and absolutely, and he does really well at the mannerisms of Captain Kirk. That makes it really work. Where you can
Hmm.
just you can feel like this is really Star Trek. And
Yes.
I wanted to ask this question. Scotty R37 had a question. Has Judy read the TNG novel Vendetta? When the Enterprise D encounters Losking, same Tholian
No.
commander from the Tholian web.
Ah, no. Please send me the link or something to this book. I'd
Okay,
love to look at it.
if anybody has a link to it, please put it in the chat if you have a wrench, or I will look it up later for you. I'd
Thanks.
love and Scotty also says I'd love to hear you talk about your legacy in the tapestry.
In the what?
I think he means
In the chat
I
room or
would
what? I
oh
just
I'm
didn't
not sure.
understand the.
I'm not sure. The question your legacy in the tapestry. I'm guessing of in Star Trek and
In Star Trek. Um, I've been fortunate because not only was I broke in on this series, but I also worked with Harv Bennett a lot. And so I was doubly blessed. I started with him over at $6 Million Man and then went to American Girls, and from there went to Matthew Starr. But in between American Girls and Matthew Starr, Harv called me and I read the well, third draft maybe of Wrath of Khan. And Harv had been looking at all the episodes and he said, "Do you want to rewrite this?" And I went, "No, that's my friend Jack Sowards you're screwing around with." And besides, I think you want to rewrite it yourself, which he did. And so I just gave a bunch of notes, which made a pretty good sized impact on Wrath of Khan. And some people
oh,
know and some people don't know,
I
so
didn't know.
well, the whole last scene, the death scene with Kirk and Spock, where Spock's dying, wouldn't be there if I hadn't gone in and given notes. Kirk stayed on the bridge while Spock died.
There are a lot of people who consider that one of the most iconic moments in Star Trek. So thank you so much for influencing that.
Yeah, I told
And
him, I said, "How can you not have the triangle there at the end?" I said, "You
mhm.
gotta have Bill there on the other side of that window. It won't work." And I said, "Besides that, you're trying to kill off Spock, and that's not going to work either. You're going to have an out." And that was fought over at the studio a long time, and it was solved in that scene where McCoy took his Katra or whatever it is. Um,
Yes,
but that scene wasn't there.
that's incredible. Well, and now
Mm-hmm.
lots of people have that on their Christmas tree. And,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
my goodness.
So I guess my legacy with Star Trek is kind of double barreled. This script turned out to be one that worked. I mean, the Tholian Web turned out to be one that worked pretty well. And I was lucky enough to get really great notes. And Chet never went down the writing path. He went to the engineering path. And so he didn't do very much on this script. but he was there for all the good ideas. So it worked out well for me. I mean, I got a lot of good publicity out of it. They did a Star Trek, um, they did a TV Guide article on me, and they did a Writer's Digest article on me, and I mean, I was Cinderella for a little tiny bit of time just because of Star Trek and Mission.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Incredible.
legacy wise, big legacy from Star Trek. Big legacy.
Great answer.
It's so cool.
It is. It is super awesome. Oh man. You answered that question. Let me see if I can find another one.
So both the Floating Web and this episode of Star Trek Continues, I thought like really features Kirk in sort of like a very central way. Like I wondered if he was your favorite character to write for, or if another character from Star Trek was.
Well, I'm going to answer that in a funny way, okay? So when Star Trek was dying and they weren't going to have a third season, I'm still this lonely broke writer and out of my backyard, and I'm making this huge sign, and it's got Spock on it, and it says Spock lives or some such thing like that. And I roll it up and I take it up to the gas station across the street from um, NBC. And the gas station owner puts it up on his gas station so it's staring at the NBC people every time they come out of the building. Spock.
Nice.
So, and when I first got scripts for this series, I had called in and I'd been in LA dating Bones at the museum, and I decided, what the heck, I'll go over to the studio and I'll get some scripts, being so stupid that I didn't know you didn't do that. So I march up to the guard at the Melrose Gate and say, I'd like to talk to Penny Unger, whose name I knew from making the call to see if I could get $2,500 for this thing. And he picks up the phone and calls in, and she says, well, they're on hiatus, so she can't touch any little green ears, so let her come in. And so I came in, and she said, Leonard's not here. And I went, that's okay, I just want 2 scripts and a Bible, please. And so she gave them to me, and that's how I learned how to write the script. But
That's awesome.
I was totally in love with Leonard Nimoy. Spock.
I love Leonard Nimoy too. He's my favorite character. Spock is my favorite character, and I really appreciate that you asked for a show Bible to study. I'm not sure all of the writers for season 3 even took a second glance at that Bible like you did. So I'm really grateful for that. And
The
that's probably part
Bible
of.
was the Bible. I mean, that's all there is to it. But those 2 scripts, one of them was DC Fontana's script, one of them, and the other one was somebody else. I don't even know what it is. It's disappeared in my life.
Speaking
And I
of
broke them
DC
down.
Fontana, go ahead.
I broke them down like they were a piece of machinery. The other thing that I did was I had a tape recorder, and I taped all the audio of all the episodes. And so I would, as I was going to the university, I would listen to the scripts. And so that gave me a sense of the pacing of the dialogue. And between learning how the people spoke their lines and what kind of lines that they spoke, and actually learning how to break down the teaser, the 4 acts, and the tag, allowed me to understand how the script was written and what it would sound like. So that's how I learned to be a scriptwriter.
You really went above and beyond listening to Star Trek like a radio play, which a lot of times you really can do, especially if you know a lot about or you've seen the episodes. You can just listen to it that way. And that is so smart. And that's how even in when you wrote this episode, you still knew how to write all of these characters really well. One of the lines that made me laugh was this one. This one is definitely something McCoy would say. If I get lost, I'm gonna come back and haunt the whole lot of you. I thought that was really great.
There's a lot of homage lines in this script. You know, Jack Sowards was funny. Jack Sowards believed in homage. And so one of the things he did in Wrath of Khan was he went back to a John Wayne movie called She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. And in the John Wayne movie, John Wayne is older now, which is part of how Kirk became an older person in Wrath of Khan. And he has to take his glasses out and look at a note. And so he's very embarrassed to do it and turns away. And Jack just lifted it completely and gave it to Kirk. So I was very conscious of homage, and so there are lines all through the script which are homage to the original show. For what it's worth.
Yeah, that's worth a ton, and it's incredible. And Dan Leckie sent in this question: Kirk jinxes Spock. Don't you think that would be regarded as an outdated superstition by the time this episode is set? Oh, right, when they both say the same thing.
That's big.
Oh, I'm sorry, you broke up. You're breaking up for me. Oh, no. Dan, can you hear Judy?
No, she's broken up for me as well.
Okay. Judy, if you need to drop out and come back in, please see if you can. I'd like to hear the answer to that one. But while we wait to see if Judy can work on her audio issue that just came up, we'll talk a bit about the episode. I know Frankish is about to answer that really interesting question. I was curious about that line too. And so of course we've got the Defiant again. Oh, okay, there she is.
Hi, are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Sorry, it buffered, so I got out and came back.
Okay,
I made a
that's
quick
brilliant.
exit. So as I was saying, the jinx thing was Vic's thing, not mine.
Okay. Then we'd have to ask him that question then. And everyone on the Defiant, well, as they knew it, were dead. But of course, there's a heartbeat, and as it turns out, it's a much older Captain Kirk in cryosleep. And I think that's a really great teaser. It's a little longer than normal teasers. And they run a DNA scan. They find out that it really is Kirk. And I enjoyed the prosthetics that you were talking about. The old age makeup, I think, is done really well. And I enjoy how they used how
Got them.
they explained.
They edited them out just for time.
Oh, what did they edit out for time?
Oh God, it just all through the script there are pieces of dialogue. They got to the point faster. I'm a long-winded writer. And so oftentimes they would just cut to the chase, and 1/3 or even half of the scene would go away, and they would just keep the best lines and go on their merry way. And I don't blame Rick. I mean,
Mhm. Oh. Okay, and it looks
they
like
did this
Judy
and they
cut
did
out
this.
again.
I just read the script again, and I could
Mhm.
go, okay, there went a half a scene, there went a third of a scene, and it.
Oh man, I wonder what lines. I would love to read all of the lines that you had. That's interesting.
Uh,
But the only problem is that you are cutting out in and out again.
Hello.
Hello. I can hear you now. Hello? All right. Now I can't. No, seriously, someone's been souping up the engines. There's chicken soup all over the dilithium crystals. Guys, cut it out. That's a good one, Tristan. Okay. Okay, there it is.
Got it?
Yes, we've got a duplicate Judy. I'll get rid of the other one.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just go out and try to come back in and get into a new stream.
Mm-hmm.
I figure better than
Well,
sitting there watching it go around in a circle.
Yes, yes, that was smart. Hopefully, well, you were talking about how there was a lot of dialogue that got cut from this script, and
Yeah,
so
because as I said, I'm long-winded, and
mm,
what I write, it usually I have more time to cut and edit, but I was still working on the premise of the 20 years before when scripts were longer and there were fewer commercials. And Vic had a different parameter dealing with this because there were only so many
yeah,
minutes that he could have the show. So he went back and very delicately, I say, cut things out that were not critical, but left the good lines, like, the one in which McCoy is compared to all of the animals. You know, it's a good thing you're a whale of a something or other. Those lines he left in, or the ancient mariner lines, things like that. He basically took a very careful pencil to it, and I trust him. He's a good writer. He's a good
that
musician. He's
line
a good
was
everything.
McCoy said,
There was
"Good
a.
thing."
Uh,
Oh, can you hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yeah, let me see. Let me see if
The
I can find it.
the line is, "Good thing you're still stronger than an ox, and more
Yes.
stubborn than a mule." That subliminal conditioning could have given you one whale of a stroke.
Yeah. And they come back with something. He comes back with something in terms of being a vet or whatever. It's been last time I was compared to so many animals or something such
I've
thing
been
like
I've
that.
been called a lot of animals in my day, but not
Yeah,
at all the same time, says old Kirk.
exactly. And he
That's
left it
that's
alone.
that's a really good that's really good. Well, there's you're really great at the interchange. Like you said, you understand the trio, and that really helps
Yeah.
when the writer is a actual fan.
So I'm gonna plug myself now for what the hell.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
writing a book, and it's not a fiction book. I'm writing Star Trek and the Craft of Screenwriting, which looks at the first 6 movies and Galaxy
Oh,
Quest, which
and Galaxy Quest.
I consider to be a Star Trek on the sly,
I do
and
too.
actually
What's it called
teaches
again?
Galaxy. Oh, it's called Star Trek and the Craft of Screenwriting, and I'm in the
Yes.
process of working on it. Unfortunately, my husband passed away in December, so I've been dealing with
Oh, I'm so
all the
sorry.
ramifications of that. And so I haven't been able to get back to my little book. But at some point, people will understand what was going on in the first 6 films and in Galaxy Quest, and basically look at some of the history of screenwriting. Because when I was in my 40s, I went back to school at UCLA for a PhD and basically looked at the history of writing from the very beginning of time. And so I'm basically using all of that history in this book to try to teach people how and why we do what we do, including classic triangles, and basically looking at triangles mathematically to see why they work and what happens when we move from one state of friendship to another state of friendship and how it impacts the entire script. So people will have a better understanding, I hope, of what that triangle meant to the show.
Yes. Yeah, the golden trio is what they usually use.
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
and
that
if that's why losing Spock would have been chaos and detrimental to the series.
right, and that's why the very next movie you had to bring him back.
Yes. Do you know that they walked out of the screening because of killing him off? They weren't going to do
Yeah,
anything until that happened.
wow. Um, right, exactly, yeah, and it really devastated a lot of fans who had to wait, for the next movie.
Yeah.
Oh, and that is really great you're writing a book about that because I'm trying to understand storytelling a little better. I don't know if I'm gonna write anything, but I want to understand the structure, and I would definitely wanna buy that book when it comes out, so it
Yeah,
could
it
um
will come out. We have our own publishing company. A friend and I started a publishing company 20
mhm.
years ago. And so it's published a lot of books, and this book will just be another book that's under Bell Harbor. Um, and so when I finish it, it'll basically include the structure of the first 7 films, you might say.
Well,
And
yeah, whenever
it,
whenever you do, you're welcome to come back on and tell us about it, and
oh, thank you.
we'll sell it here.
I appreciate it. I asked Vic how many people were out there still interested in Star Trek, and he said, "Oh, I don't know, but we've got several millions now on the Star Trek Continues site, so that ought to be pretty good for you."
Yeah, definitely. And I want to
I
say
only,
hello to Herc
oh, go
130
ahead.
in the chat. He says, I dropped a jack stand on my right foot and I cracked a bone last week.
Oh,
I have just started being able to wear a shoe. It still
oh,
hurts, but I'm functioning fine now. Oh, a Herc
didn't
130, I'm so
impact his
sorry.
mind.
Right, right. His mind is still working well. And now he can wear shoes, so things are looking up. He's healing. I'm glad you're healing, Herc 130. I hope it gets better. Goodness. I just noticed that. Let's see. I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions in the chat. Because there was one question. You were mentioning DC Fontana earlier, and there's this question that comes in from a channel friend named Berta Pray 5. In the 60s, Dorothy Fontana wanted to ensure her scripts weren't prejudged based on her gender, which was an issue at the time, so she went by DC. Back then, did you ever consider using a gender neutral name like that?
Yep, I did.
You
For
did?
exactly the same reason.
Mhm.
It's interesting because it went under J.A. Burns originally, and it wasn't until we actually sold it that I said, "Well, that's the end of that. It's going to be Judy." But I was afraid of the same thing, and I understood before I even met her why she had done it. I didn't know very much about the industry, but I did know female bias. And what's interesting is that throughout most of my career, I was considered the token female, and I was said to be the woman who could write like a man. So that was when I got hired. Oh, she can write like a man, and it was I didn't say anything because what could you say?
Yeah,
You,
that doesn't age very well today, but that used to be a compliment, but it's like it's not really. It's like you can write well. You're brilliant all on your own.
yeah,
You write like
but
a woman because you're a woman.
you write like a person.
Like
You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
it's there is
You
no
write like a
gender
person.
as far as I'm concerned. And what's
Exactly.
interesting
That's
is women in the old Hollywood in the 30s
mhm.
were respected as women, and many of them were top-notch writers, and they didn't have that bias. So in the 30s and 40s, there were great women writers, and then suddenly in the 50s, wow, it went away. And by the 60s, it was gone. And you didn't find women in any of the staffs. I never met a woman on staff while I was on staff. I was
Oh my
it.
goodness. So
It
it
was
actually
horrible.
it went backwards.
Yes. Yes, it went backwards. There were great writers. Dorothy Parker, um,
Mm.
the lady who wrote Ghost of Mrs. Muir, broke in at 15 back in the late 40s. And she she had a good career, but she started to die off by the 60s. They wouldn't talk to her. I mean, she wrote the Ghost of Mrs. Muir pilot for the series. And even then, after writing the pilot, she could work on that show, but she never got a job on any other show. It was terrible.
Mm.
So a lot of bias against women. And when I would meet people in the early days, they were all the old men writers from those early days, and they still didn't hire women writers, and they had hired them in the 30s and 40s. There were people who were in their 60s and 70s, old men, who were running a lot of these shows. And and there was a whole new crop of men coming in, like Bruce Geller, who did Mission Impossible, and he would hire a woman like he hired me, but it was very difficult, very difficult. I had a lot of
Mhm.
times where I didn't know if I was ever going to have a job again just because I was female.
But you had quite a few though. You wrote quite a bit during the
Uh, I
You wrote
wrote
more teleplays
consistently.
after.
I was killed by ageism.
Oh,
When I was 45, I had already been a writer for 23, 24 years. And so everybody was going, well, she's been around 24 years. She's old. And the agents no longer would send the scripts out.
oh my God! But
So,
45 isn't even old. What?
no. And today it doesn't work. But the Writers Guild, 10 years later, I mean, all of the writers who were 45 and over were being killed off by ageism. And so I went back to university and basically said, well, that's it. I've had it. Gone. Quitting. And
Well, yeah, and it's good to go where you're where you're needed, and
I really
you
wanted
knew.
to understand what I
Mhm.
did. I had never learned how to be a writer. I was never going to be a writer. So I
Well,
had
you were
no
taking classes
understanding.
as you were writing Dolian Web, so that
No,
makes
yeah, yes, I just finished the university, but I was an anthropologist, not a writer.
right.
I was going to go to Africa.
Oh, did you go find your bones after all?
No,
After all that?
I met
Oh,
I met Louis after I sold the script, and he said, "I always thought you were a square peg in a round hole." And so we laughed about it, and he congratulated me, and unfortunately, he wanted somebody to go live with the gorillas, and we know what happened to the lady who went and lived with the gorillas. She got her head cut off. She
oh my
was
God.
killed. So Diane Fossey. And
I didn't hear
so
about
that
that.
would
I
have been
didn't
my
know that.
fate had I.
Had you gotten to complete the works that you're trying to do? Oh, you cut out again, so you might want to reset if you can hear me. And so that's I gotta say, okay, I'm gonna take this opportunity while Judy is resetting her connection to say hello to Canadian Spider-Man. And Captain Opfinity is here. Uh, I I just tell pages I'm 27 and look like Sydney Sweeney. Oh, agents, not pages. Okay.
Two again.
Okay. Oh, okay. There you are.
So what I was saying is, I didn't go to Africa. I did not become a gorilla girl, and I didn't get my head cut off like she did.
Well, yeah, I'm glad your head's still here so we can hear from you.
Yeah, I was stunned when that happened, but that's what he
Oh my
wanted
gosh,
me for was
I hadn't even heard that story.
um she was a fighter against poachers, and the poachers killed her.
Oh my god.
So
Yeah, and yeah, poachers are disgusting, so that's a good cause, but it's terrible that
yeah,
happened.
so I basically was meant to be where I was ended up, I
Keith
guess.
Keithy wants to ask a question about your husband. Was he in the business?
No, he wasn't. He was in the park service. I always said that if I ever married, and I never thought I would, that I would marry a mountain man. And I met him up at Kings Canyon National Park. He was in the park service. And so over the course of a summer, we fell in love and ended up marrying. And he basically turned into the household person. He was um, he was a builder and built houses and built our house, built my parents' house, built other houses. But
Wow.
we had one child, and he basically took care of the child while I went to Hollywood. He was the
Mm,
best man I ever knew, and I was sorry to
very
lose him.
very handy.
He,
Yes, I'm very sorry for your loss.
yeah, he had been in the military in Vietnam and in contact with Agent Orange, and ultimately Agent Orange killed him. It
Oh, that's horrible.
it it was horrible. Yeah. So, but
They
it
got a lot of people from that war on
yeah.
both sides.
However, he met a lot of people from Hollywood, and he was a good diplomatic man. That's all I can say. Newport people like Martin Landau, he got along with Martin really well from Mission, things like that. He was always around.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what you want.
Yeah,
As
I
somebody who's
had a
always
man who
around.
was my helpmate and allowed me to write. I mean, some people could not have taken the 16-hour days that I had. I was on staff a lot, and usually the day started at 9 o'clock for me and ended up at 2 in the morning. So
Mhm.
he survived me being on staff time and time and time again, which a lot of people could not have done. A lot of divorces from Hollywood.
Right, what a good man. He's very patient.
Yes, and took care of our child like a champ. So
Mhm.
what can I say? I was lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're really good at writing close relationships like this, and I enjoy the feeling of well, this old Kirk thinks that he was abandoned by his crew. He thinks
Yes.
that they forgot about him or they left him for dead, and he's finding out that that's not the case. Like, and that's the whole story behind the artificial intelligence that kept the older Kirk alive, and kind of they formed a bond about how the crew left him behind, but the AI is there to take care of him.
Yeah, with the whole idea that
Yeah,
at some point the AI would get him home. But once he's at home, the AI is jealous and won't let him go. He wants him
okay.
back.
Right, because
It's
the artificial intelligence gained some kind of sentience in terms of not wanting to be lonely himself.
exactly very
And I
good.
think that's a really big Star Trek theme, and I really enjoyed how it was integrated into this one.
I thought it was
Well,
interesting that.
go ahead, dear
Oh,
Dan.
sorry.
Sorry.
I thought it was interesting that Rika Sharma turns out to be in the first season of Star Trek Discovery, basically at the start of that show, and then at the end of that show, there's the concept of double black hole that's been
Oh,
featured in
I
the
haven't even seen
finale.
that.
Yeah, it's been featured in the finale of Discovery. So, with this episode featuring like a double black hole, I wondered like how much research did you do about black holes when you were writing this episode?
Um, Not a lot. Chet and I are still friends. And so I picked up the telephone and said, "Hey, Chet, I want to do XYZ. How do I do it?" And so we sat, of course, I read a lot about science. So he suggested, the whole dark matter background and the fact that possibly there could be binary black holes. And if so, it would be kind of devastating if they ever met. And that's where it came from. God bless Chet. I have to give credit
That's
where
great.
credit
So
is due.
he was basically a science consultant,
He,
uncredited science consultant for this episode.
he's always been my science consultant. When I was on MacGyver, I brought him in and said, let's talk, things that MacGyver can do scientifically. And he came in and spent a day talking to the whole staff about things like that, uncredited, never got a bit of credit for it, but he's a good guy.
Yeah, that's
So,
well, bless him for helping you out. That is great. I want to say see you later to Tristan Mendoza. He's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go fight traffic. Those tribbles aren't going to bake themselves. But don't eat the tribbles. Anyway, have a great day, Tristan. Enjoy your tribbles. And yeah.
it's interesting because David Gerald and I were the two people who went to the Writers Guild lawyers and basically said they're taking our stuff and not paying for it. And he managed to do better than I did because I think he really made a kill on the tribbles. I didn't make too much of a kill on the Tholians, but at least we attempted to tell Paramount they should not be
Mhm.
using these things without giving us some recompense for the ideas. Their idea.
I have to consult with my daughter just for a moment. I gotta talk to her a bit. I'll be right back for just a moment. Dan, if you can talk for a bit.
Dan, you there?
Hi, yeah. So
Oh, I was just wondering how you know Mark Cushman.
yeah, I was enjoying your what you were saying about David Gerald and yourself, like saying like we need to be credited uh with the Tribbles and the Tholians. I was
Yeah.
wondering if you could tell us like where the idea for the Tholians came from.
Um, we needed somebody to um, be the villains of the
Mhm.
piece. And it's interesting because Bobby Justman in his memo said, "Who the hell are these Tholians and why are they lurking around this place and just keeping us from doing things?" And he was
Mhm.
right because um, those days I had no better concept of how to make Jeopardy than
Mhm.
inventing some bad guy who just comes in. And we didn't want to use any bad guys that they had already used. Did not want Klingons or Romulans or anybody else that they'd already used.
Yeah,
So Chet and I originally had thought about what it would be and said, what's the farthest thing from being a human we can come up with? And that was the silicone based life form, which probably couldn't exist. And then we just sat around and said, what kind of name can we give it? Originally, the Defiant was called the Scimitar,
oh yeah,
and the Tholians was just a name that sounded cool. It just
yeah,
rolled off the tongue. And so suddenly we had, a group. And then we said, okay, so we've got these people. How can we utilize them that they've never done before? And we were thinking about a force field, of course. We had two things in the script that were interesting. The force field couldn't look like a force field, so we turned it into a spider's web and let the ships do the force fielding. And the second was something that Bobby wanted to use desperately, which was a, a belt instead of
yeah,
spacesuits. And
yeah,
so he loved that idea. And
yeah,
Yeah.
so he said, "Wow, this is really a cool idea. Let's use it." And then somebody, I don't know who, said, "Well, if we've got that kind of a belt, they never can be in jeopardy if it tears or something like that. So they've got to go back to the spacesuits." And the first time I saw the spacesuits, I almost dropped to my knees and laughed. I went, "You got to be kidding me!" Because they came in, all of them came trooping in with these let's say screen window screens on their helmets. and and I went,
yeah,
what happened to the force field? And so that was the spacesuit. And it's really sad because I liked Ralph Sadesky a whole bunch. I mean, I thought he was God. And of course, I knew nothing about directors at all. But he spent some time telling us what the setups were going to be as I sat there or stood there and watched the filming for 6 days. And then one day the spacesuits came in, and the next day Ralph Sineski was gone. And so it turned
Oh.
out that the spacesuits took so long to do that his timing was totally off, and he was taking a little extra time with things like the engineering section and things like that. And the next thing I know, Herb, whatever his name is, was suddenly directing, and
Yeah. That's not fair.
it
To
broke my
take a
heart.
director off right in the middle of the episode,
It was
it's not.
god
And
awful and not needed.
yeah, no,
The guy,
not at all. And from what I understand, Ralph was really worked really well with the crew, and so it was ridiculous to get rid of him. And plus, these spacesuits are really cool. I really
well, he
enjoy
had
them.
he had done the majority of the good stuff.
Mhm.
So basically, anything else that had to be shot was shot in a rush in order to try to
Make up for
get the
lost time.
episode finished. Yeah, and this was bought. One of the reasons it was bought was because again, it was a bottle show. And I understood at that time that a bottle show was going to be cheaper. So when we wrote it, I specifically wrote it as a bottle show with just the web being the thing that would be expensive. I knew nothing about Hollywood, but I did know what a bottle show was. And
Yeah.
so it's really a shame that he got taken off of it because he's brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant
he
man.
is. He is. He's fantastic, and he directed a few other Star Trek episodes, and he does a really great job each time. And
Yeah.
regarding the belt, that it's supposed to be like a space suit, and they said it was overpowered. The crew could never be in danger. So they took that idea and they used it in Star Trek the animated series where
I heard.
you can't have your crew in danger for as much in a kids show, so it worked perfectly there.
Yeah, yeah, it's really a shame. Once again, I would have loved to have seen the idea. It was better for the ghost story,
Mhm.
just to have Kirk around without a spacesuit on or anything.
And I said
It,
something wrong. The animated series is not a kids show. It just happened to be in the Saturday morning cartoon slot.
yeah, no, it was the show as much as they could do of the show
Mhm.
without having all the live actors, having
Exactly.
them only voicing. It
The
was
way
a good
that they
show.
it was the showrunner was DC Fontana, and her stipulation was write it exactly as if it's live action, and
Yeah.
so the only difference is they can do more interesting things with the animation.
It's interesting because I would have liked to have written for the show, but
Oh,
um,
yeah.
I just never got a chance to do it. I ended up on
Oh,
other
I bet
shows.
you would have wrote a really cool one.
I hope so.
Mhm. Season
I
2
was
would have
set to write another one for them if they went to a fourth season,
mhm.
but it's so funny because I ended up upstairs while they filmed everything, and then at the end when it all left, Leonard came upstairs and worked for us. So he became Paris on Mission Impossible.
Oh, right, okay. When you were writing for Mission Impossible, he was there?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Nice.
And the
So
one I liked got a job.
cool. And so where we are in this episode, a Klingon ship appears. Well, we don't see any Klingons because it turns out it just ends up eaten up by the black hole. It gets taken away.
Yes. 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 Yeah, that
Yeah,
was, just a residual leftover, something to tell us Jeopardy.
yeah. I wondered if that was always going to be Klingons there.
Yeah, it was originally in the very first one. The Tholians were there, and the Klingons were the icing on the cake. They got left over long enough to be destroyed. That's all. It was a residual from the original idea, but it gave us something to show what was going to happen to us.
Right,
There was a
because it
lot
got
more
caught in the black
outside
hole.
Jeopardy. Yeah,
And then we
that's
meet
about five.
the
Sorry,
that's okay.
that's about 5 drafts back.
Oh, yeah, the evolution of the scripts is always really interesting to learn about. So
Yeah, if you
that
look
is
at
cool.
my hard drive, you'll see there's a Dark Matter 1, Dark Matter 2, Dark Matter 3, blah, blah, blah. This is the one that we ended up with that I read this morning was Dark Matter 8.
Oh, nice. Oh, there were 8 of them. That's a
It,
lot of you put a lot of work. You go all the way when you do this. And
well,
that's the line in this
there was a lot of fighting.
yeah.
I mean, for something that was being done for free, Vic had very strong ideas about what he wanted. And so I just kept mincing around and mincing around. And in a way, it helped the script because as you get to know it more and more and more, you realize what you got to get rid of and what you really, really want. And I'm a person who believes in rewrite. In fact, rewrite is the power tool of the writer.
Mhm. That's it. That's a good point.
Hmm. Yeah, don't be afraid to rewrite. It's where your creativity actually does come in. The first
Yeah.
draft is a draft that's there to just barf on the page. And the second one is the draft that kind of arranges things. And that's why when people buy scripts in town, there's a first draft story, a second draft story, a polish on the story, first draft script, second draft script, polish on the script, and then they just keep asking for polishes. And hopefully you get a chance to do them even if they're not paying you.
Mhm. And so this is the part of the episode where we meet the third Kirk. And so Captain Kirk says, just how many of us are there?
Yes. That was the pitch that he wanted. That was the line that he wanted. He always liked the idea of playing three characters at once.
Yeah, it's something that Brent Spiner got to do in The Next Generation with Data, and so that's pretty cool that he got to do it too.
Yes. Yep, they love it.
And what happens next?
Am I still here?
Oh, yes, you're still here. You're still here. I was trying to
Okay.
figure out what's happening. Oh, they wanted to fire at it. Oh, why did they want to fire at it? I don't remember.
Well, the idea was to shove it back, make it go back where it came from.
Oh, right.
And possibly if they made it go back where they came from, it would free them up and they could get the hell out of there.
Okay.
But unfortunately, if you fed him power, it just made that ship stronger, which
And
is
that
why
kind
the
of
old
makes
Kirk says,
sense.
"Don't do it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's how you know that old Kirk knows about the AI.
Yes, not only knows the AI, but he understands how the ship is built. You know, the idea that it can go to warp 15 is radical in Star
It
Trek.
is.
At that time, they only went up to 9, I think, and if they went to 10, they probably would be destroyed. So they always ended up slingshotting around suns if they wanted to get more speed.
Yeah,
But
and there's a time where they go faster than that, but it's because something they don't understand is upgrading the machine. So I thought that this was really similar to that time that it goes faster.
I don't think I'd ever seen them go up to, something like 15 in any of the shows before.
Not
I
15,
might
I
be
think it's
wrong.
11. I think they'd go to 11. I
Which
forget.
show is that?
It's a original series. But I
Yeah,
forget
it's
which episode.
possible. But I mean, in the original series, I know that they use the same thing that they did in Star Trek 4, I think, which is they use the sun to accelerate past their original warp 9. And so they didn't break the ship up. But this guy's had 200 years to get the ship in a shape where it can take 15. And that's one of the reasons the ship can tow him out of there at the end. It's got power.
Mm-hmm. And yes. Mm-hmm.
So, were there any parts of this episode that you find particularly difficult to write?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest thing is trying to give every character something. That was one of the big things on the Tholian web that I learned. They really wanted Uhura to have something to do. They wanted Chekhov to have something to do. Just so you know, I never wrote the Chekhov illness into the original script. And that was Arthur Singer who was trying to come up with more Jeopardy. But it worked. So, you just say thank you and move on. And in this one, things like the San Francisco line for Sulu was an attempt to just give characters something that was theirs. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. But you're always trying to find something that will give a character a reason to exist in the show, as versus the big four, I call them, the triangle plus Scotty. And I really wanted Scotty to have more time because I like Chris Doohan. I liked his dad and I liked Chris a lot. And so he had a few more lines than normally would happen. One of the other or two of the bones of contention in this show were the cryo chamber. They didn't want to do it. And the device that brainwashed old Kirk. They didn't want to do either thing, and that was one of the big things that Vic constantly resisted. And I said, I've got to get him to last 200 years. I don't know any other way to do it. And so finally they gave in and they built the unit and did it. And the brainwashing device was the only way that I could keep the information from being given out without just blurting it out. He had to fight for it. So finally they did both of them.
And that makes sense because Kirk is very strong-willed. He wouldn't have just done whatever the AI wanted him to do. And so it makes sense that the AI had a way to control him in this way. It makes it makes it more believable.
Gone. You're gone. Are you
Oh,
back?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
did you hear the stuff about the cryo chamber?
Yeah, yes, and I'm so glad that you came up with that because it wouldn't have made sense how he was 200 years old and only looking 60. So I mean 90.
Yeah, exactly. And the device that brainwashed him
Yes,
was
yes,
critical
because
too.
yeah, what I was saying was that Kirk is so strong-willed. It would only make sense if there was a way to actually manipulate him. Then it would have to be some kind of technology. So that I'm so glad you put that there.
Yeah, and the other question constantly was, well, how did Tiberius get him into a cryo chamber? And the device, the brainwashing device, was my answer, which is if you can brainwash something, you can force them to basically crawl into a cryo chamber without having to do it yourself. And since Tiberius had no hands per se, that was the way to do it. The uh, the turning on of the device was something that could happen by the AI, but just getting into the device, he'd have to do it himself. And the that device gave me a way to do it, so I was able to get around the problem. The other thing that Vic really wanted, and it was in the script but cut out for a big chunk of was cut out, was the fact that for the first 11 or 12 years of the old Kirk's existence, what he was doing was cleaning house. And actually, there was a scene totally on the bridge and around the ship of him having to deal with all of the dead bodies that were on the ship and the fact that he buried them all at sea, so to speak, in this other universe.
Yeah, it said that he took
by one.
4 months to have proper funerals for everyone.
Right. And that was not just a line or so spoken. It actually was a scene on the Defiant, which in which he's basically discussing or talking about what he's having to do and the fact that he knew some of these people and that he was having to basically bury them with honor and get them all off the ship. That was something Vic really wanted. He wanted to know what happened to all the bodies, and he wanted old Kirk to have to deal with it so that he basically was looking at his own mortality time after time after time after time. He was the last one standing. Good idea by
Yeah.
I mean Vic had a good idea.
Yeah, that it
But
was a good
unfortunately
idea.
it
It
got
would have been
cut.
great.
I mean a lot of it
It would
got
have been
cut.
great to have seen a little bit of that.
Yeah. But like I said before, it got cut.
Mhm. Well, and another
Fine.
thing he must have been doing on that ship was writing the AI that eventually developed that sentience. So
Yeah, it's interesting
Captain
because
Kirk.
he wasn't writing the AI. He was just talking to the AI. You know, you think about the ship's computer, and the ship's computer was always a female. Remember, Magel did the ship's
Yeah,
computer?
Magel Barrett.
Exactly. So on this ship, when it when it went into whatever it went into, it impacted some of the ship itself, and out popped this male voice, and it basically became something he could talk to, and it evolved as his personality went into the discussions with the, I guess, nascent AI. So, you know, he built in his own way, Tiberius, but not by actually manually building him. He just bared
He
his
just talked
soul
to
to
him.
it.
Hmm
Yeah,
They just
exactly.
became friends.
And
So
I
kind of like
wonder,
when you start like when you chat to Chat GPT or something. I guess I wonder if
Yeah,
that's
it's
possible.
like AI is
Even
to
though
us now.
It's not what we have now isn't true AI. It's machine learning language, but it could be the same thing one day.
It's
And
exactly
Dan,
what he faced when he was there. Is exactly what we're facing now.
Did you have something you were gonna ask?
I wondered, like, where the name Ty, like short for Tiberius, obviously, like where that idea came from. Do you remember having that idea?
Just came out of my head. I figured
Yeah,
he wouldn't continue to call him Tiberius. He would have a pet name for him.
I really love that idea.
I liked it. I mean, it
Yeah,
seemed very personal and
yeah.
something that you would do to somebody who was your only friend. I
Hmm.
mean, it, you're not Daniel, you're Dan. I mean,
Yeah,
or whatever you are, but that's the same idea. Or Robert
yeah,
and Bobby.
yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, I do like how it builds where the AI does end up becoming a bit sinister, in terms of um, it,
Controlling, I would
it's
say.
it's afraid. It's afraid, of course, of being alone. So it's like they're gonna say, "Don't make me put you back in the cryo chamber," and all of that.
Yeah, that's very astute of you, to understand that the AI also exists in a place where he doesn't want to be alone. He's become human in a way. And the idea of living existence alone for the rest of its existence, that's horrifying. That could be 1,000 years of that.
Yeah,
I
and
would not want
and
to face that.
you but it's great because it parallels with older Kirk's loneliness and meeting his old friend from his teenage years who he loved.
I particularly like the idea that he finds out that he wasn't abandoned and that the crew actually love him. You know,
Mhm.
it's it's powerful to know that you weren't left behind, that they cared about you enough that they stayed.
Yeah, and I also like how current Captain Kirk doesn't really like seeing those emotions on his older self of the how much he had to go through.
This show has, it's interesting because it's the last script,
Mhm.
except for some movie scripts. I've written a couple movie scripts for myself.
Oh, really?
This
This
is the
was your last
last.
work?
This is the last thing that I've ever done for TV,
Well,
and I kind of like it.
hmm.
I liked it too. And yeah, it is especially awesome that you worked with the co-author for the Tholian Web. And so
Oh,
it
you
makes
mean
a ton of
Chet?
sense. Yeah, with
Yeah,
Chet. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Chet's written a book too.
Mhm.
God, what is it? Star Trek and Potato something or other. It's a memoir. It's a little memoir in which he
Oh, I better
basically,
yes.
it's out there. The only thing is that Chet's memories of what happened there and my memories are two different sets of memories. So he and I have a few bones of contention to talk about things that happened when we were on the show. But still, he's a fascinating man, and he's an engineer, and he's brilliant.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, he's done a lot of things like gone down the Amazon. You know.
Mhm.
Well, did he consult you when he was writing the memoir?
No. Well, in a way, he sent me a couple of chapters well before he ever wrote the book, which basically dealt with the time we were on the show, which wasn't a very long time. Think about it, probably a month of meetings with Arthur Singer more than anything else, and um, he remembers things that I don't remember. That's all. And I said, Chet, I don't remember the stuff happening this way. And so I just left it alone. Maybe his memory is better than mine, maybe not. But, you know, I just left it alone and it ended up in his book the way it ended up. So, it's to me, he's got some very fond memories that I don't have. That's all.
Mm,
I know. It's interesting.
that
But then
is.
who knows? Who knows? Memory's a funny thing.
Yeah, so then we get to the main issue, having to deal with the double black hole, and the risk from that.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that I go back to the Bobby Justman memo again. You know, when Kirk, our young Kirk, decides he's the one who's going to go do it, one of the things that Bobby Justman wrote was, well, Kirk would be the last one standing. Originally, it was Spock who'd been left behind who was going to be the ghost, not Kirk. Okay? That's for the Tholian
Hmm.
Web. That's because
Yes.
I love Spock. So in this memo, he said, what the hell is Spock being left behind for? Kirk is the schmuck who takes all that stuff on himself. So let's let it, and we have Spock's brain. So let's put Kirk on the ship and just get him out of the show for a big chunk of show.
Bob made a good point.
Yes. And so the point is that when young Kirk in this episode has the chance to grab the reins and say, I'm the one that's going to go and sacrifice for everybody, it was just a takeoff on that original Bobby Justman memo saying, okay, you're the old captain and now you're going to have a chance to run the Enterprise again and I'll go die. Okay. So I thought it was kind of fun because Bobby made such a big point of it.
Yes, and was it your idea to make a reference to another Star Trek episode when you did the chess scene between Kirk and the AI? And
Oh, the chess
well,
scene?
yes. So one of
Go
my
ahead, tell
favorite
me.
tropes. One of my favorite tropes of Star Trek is when Kirk can outsmart a computer, and so this is what is happening here, where um where they have the chess scene, and it kind of he introduces the Trojan into it.
Yes.
But
Well,
this reference to whom gods destroy, what did you put that into the script?
not per se, but yes.
Mm.
Candidly, there was a guy who wrote a three-dimensional chess program that you could see. I don't remember the guy's name, but actually, during the time I was writing this show, you could go over to YouTube somewhere or someplace like it, and you could watch this chess game being played on a three-dimensional chessboard. And I was fascinated by it. I mean, I watched this thing again and again and again and thought, and originally in the original episodes, Kirk and Spock would play on this three-dimensional chessboard. So I thought, okay, if you're going to deal with an AI, the AI probably likes a puzzle, which would be the chess game. And so let's do the chess game, and we'll get this guy to actually let us use his chess game on the screen. It turned out that they just couldn't put that together. So we never saw the chess pieces moving. And
Mhm.
ultimately, the chess game became a reason to introduce the Trojan, which they had managed to make because they had that device that allowed them to get into his mind a little bit. And so it all worked out. And of course, you had the little special effects and what have you. But the reason the chess game was there was because of this guy who'd written the three-dimensional chess program.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that caused a
that's
lot.
wow, that's where that idea came from. That's cool.
Yeah, and there's a line between Kirk and Old Kirk in which Old Kirk says, um, "I I tried to basically cheat at chess and rewrite the program, and it caught me and put me back in cryo, punishment." And so that became an offshoot of the whole chess idea, which is what gave young Kirk the idea of playing chess with Tiberius and ultimately introducing the Trojans. So it's all a big circular thing in a way.
It really works because Kirk usually plays poker, and this time he's playing chess with the enemy.
Yeah, but
I really like that.
I remember those early days in which they sat in the rec room playing chess. It's never left my mind.
Mhm.
It may have been in the pilot, the second pilot, or in one
Yeah.
of the episodes just down the pike. But I mean, it was a chess game in which Spock should win, but Kirk did win or was doing well. And I always thought if he could beat Spock, then he could beat Tiberius, even if
Right,
it
he
had
can
to
already
be a
beat he can
cheat.
beat a computer. Exactly.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
of Kirk's intuition is how he wins against
Yes,
logic.
yes, exactly. He does the unexpected. And the unexpected
Mhm.
is what, by the way, gave you the Kobe mushroom. Kobe mushroom. You say it
Corbomite
because it's
the
the
Corbomite maneuver.
Kobayashi Maru.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Kobayashi Maru. Oh,
The
that.
Kobayashi
Okay.
Maru. Which, by the
Yes.
way, in case anybody cares, the Kobayashis were Jack Howard's neighbors.
Yeah, the Kobayashis.
Oh. That's great. Yes, of
And
course.
Maru is
Oh,
what
hold
all the
on just a
ships
second. I have
are.
to step away for a second.
Yeah, I
When
remember
my daughter calls, I have to go.
I've recently there's a book about the making of Star Trek II that Wrath of Khan that quite recently came out, and I remember like reading quite an early script version of I think it's the scene where Spock dies, and I was like,
I had to
wow,
laugh.
this is really different from what ended up, on screen. It was
Yeah,
really
I laughed because the only people who really knew what happened was me and Harv,
hmm
and it never went into the book. I mean, I know about the book, but like I said, I tell the truth when I say that scene would not have existed. It didn't exist in the script that way. Kirk sat on the bridge while his friend died. So who knows how they got all their data, but they certainly don't have the data that was the truth. Hmm.
Okay. Sorry about that. I had to receive a news report from my daughter. So Dave C
Good.
says, just sneaking a like and a hello from work. Hello, Dave C. A question. Keithy has a question. Do you have one very obscure fact that can help me win a drink at a bar?
Obscure fact. I think I gave you the one obscure fact, which is renowned punctuality or renowned Tholian punctuality. That's as obscure as it comes. Um, not really. I mean, there are a lot of obscure facts out there, but I certainly don't remember them off the top of my head. I remember them stitching up the back of those spacesuits, which was terrible. They
Oh, and
had to
then you're
all be
trapped in
stitched up
there. Oh
by
my
hand.
goodness.
Somebody with a needle and thread stitching up spacesuits.
If anybody does have any questions, just please put them in the chat and I can read them. And meanwhile, in the episode.
I did, there's an interesting little thing that used to happen. While I was at Mission, I was very lucky because I was just a baby writer, so they paid me like a baby writer, but they also allowed me to go down on set a lot. And so Mission Impossible's soundstage and Star Trek soundstage were right next to each other. So all I had to do was just walk around the corner, and I was over at Star Trek watching them shoot. Um, and while they were off, both Mission and Star Trek did the same thing. They played liar's poker with dollar bills. So if you want an obscure fact, there it is. They have the serial numbers on those dollar bills, and they would sit in their little chairs in a circle and play liar's poker. Both both casts, I would say, had that as their thing to do while they were waiting for scenes to be brought up.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty fun. Well, since they were filming at the same time, the crew got together and played games.
Well, not that
That's cool.
no, the two crews didn't get together. I'm saying that they both did the same kind of thing. So
Oh, okay.
over on the mission
Gotcha.
side, when they had spare time, a lot of time they would sit around and play liar's poker.
Mhm.
And if you went over to the Star Trek side, there were a lot of people that you saw in passing as Star Trek extras. And between the main stars sometimes would do it, but mostly it was the extra people would sit around in their chairs and play liar's poker while they waited for something to happen, the lighting, the sound. whatever, lots of time in between scenes in which you do nothing. So they played liar's poker.
Hmm.
I'll tell you a story about Warner Brothers if you're interested.
Oh, sure, please do.
Okay, so I'm working on TJ Hooker. And of course, like I told you, sometimes it would be 2 in the morning when I would be trying to finish the script off. So I got up one night and decided to walk the lot. And I'm walking by a soundstage when I see a light inside. Now, sometimes they had lights on where the sets were just sleeping, so to speak. They have a little light, just keep things up. But typically the door would be closed. And in this case, the big sliding door was open. And so I looked in only because this voice said, "Hey, girlie." I went, "What?" And I walk over, and there's this guy sitting in the set. And I go, "Hello." And he goes, "Hi." And it turned out that this guy lived on the studio lot. And he lived kind of from set to set to set. He was very old. This was, well, let's see. This would have been around 1980. Oh God, 1982 or something like this. Okay, so um, it would have been probably 80 to 40, almost 50 years
And he
from the
lived
time the
there?
30s. He lived there. And I said, "Why are you living?" And he said, "Well, Jack Warner told me I could." I have no idea who he was, except he was somebody like a sound guy or what have you. And he'd been living nonstop at this studio and basically going over to the commissary and eating whatever was there. And
Oh,
he'd
that's
been doing
so
it for 50
strange.
years. He was kind of like
When
the
I was a
phantom of the Warner Brothers lot. And
well,
I talked
when
to
I
him
was
for
a
about an
kid,
hour.
I
Huh?
I used to watch a cartoon called The Animaniacs, and they lived in the water tower at the studio. So
Well,
that's kind of
there was a guy who lived on the
reminds me of that.
lot.
Hmm.
And he was really interesting because he had been there from Casablanca on. He could just tell you story after story after story. I never saw him again. But I spent about an hour talking to him at 2 o'clock in the morning about.
I believe we lost Judy for a moment. Oh, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there you are. You left off where you said what you were talking to him about. The man
Oh,
who lives on set. What was his
yeah.
name?
Sorry about that. So I.
Oh, okay. Judy might have to reset. In the meantime, I want to say hello to Stark of Iron. He's leaving a like and love as he prepares to commute to that job. All right.
So can you hear me?
There. Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry about that. I'm not getting a buffering sign, so I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyway, he he basically lived on the food from the commissary, and he must have had keys. That's all I know. And he basically spent 50 years on the lot, living on the lot. He had known everybody from Bogart on down, and he had worked in, I think, sound. But whatever he did, he knew everyone who had been there the last 50 years. And that was the last time I ever saw him. But he basically said, "Nice to meet you." And I walked away and never saw him again. The Phantom of Warner Brothers.
That's cool. I've never heard of this guy, so thank you for talking
Nobody,
about him.
I don't know who knows about him, but I'm serious. He was an old man. I mean, this was 50 years back to the 30s. So he had to have been in his late 70s, early 80s. Um, and basically, he had lived on the lot his whole life.
Yeah.
Are we still here?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Uh,
My daughter wanted
That's
to talk to
okay.
me again. I had it that happens. It's summer break, so they're not in school for the summer. So I've got to help her
It's
out
okay.
every once in
I
a
just shipped my
while.
14-year-old off to Florida, where I'd be
You
doing the
have a
same thing.
14-year-old. Oh my
I
goodness.
have a
Okay.
14-year-old granddaughter
Oh, okay. That's lovely.
who lives with me.
Wow,
Cool.
that is cool. So we're at the part of the episode where old Kirk has under his orders has the crew knock out younger Kirk, and so that he can go deal with the artificial intelligence and with all the issues with the black hole and everything.
I thought,
Yeah, that was different in the script. It was originally a neck pinch.
oh wow, cool. I thought it was
Oh,
interesting. I thought like the old age makeup that Kirk wears sort of reminded me of the Deadly Years in the original series, where Kirk is also in old age, and
Yes.
then like the idea of like an older version of a captain sort of reminded me of there's a Next Generation episode called Time Squared, where Picard meets like an older version of himself. It's not much older
Yes.
in that case. But then also in like the series finale of Voyager, there's like Admiral Janeway meets Captain Janeway.
Yeah,
mhm.
it's interesting because none of that came to play in this. In reality, what came to play was Vic saying, "I know Bill Shatner, and he might play the old Kirk."
Yeah, I was wondering about that. That was my first thought when I watched this episode. Did anybody think to ring Bill?
I think
And
they
I forgot.
tried,
Yeah.
but I think in the end, Vic decided that it was more fun to do it himself than to give it away, and I'm not sure Bill would have done it anyway. I mean, maybe, but the whole idea
Oh.
when it was being pitched was, I know Bill, and maybe he would do it. And so I went,
Mhm.
okay, so let's write it as if it was Bill. And obviously Vic put on the prosthetics and took it to the bank.
Yeah,
So
and he did a great job.
he did.
It kind of might have taken you out of it a bit if you did get Shatner, because you know that this isn't the actual Captain Kirk, and so it might have been a little jarring. So I actually do like that he did it himself, but it still would have been
Yeah,
cool.
it would have been cool. And you don't know in that other series, which I think was a terrible series, did have, I think Walter Koenig was on it once, and somebody else was on it once from the original show. I can't remember because I consider it to be a terrible show, but they got the rights to the sets up in New York, and we're tied with a lot of people from Star Trek. So when he mentioned Bill Shatner, I went, oh well, maybe. Didn't matter.
Well, which show is this? Oh, so I'm so sorry. I have to help.
Dan, you probably know who the guy is, James something or other.
Was it a fan
Dan?
film?
It was the other fan hour-long show, so to speak, that they did. He was a terrible Kirk.
Oh right.
Didn't look didn't look
Yeah,
like
like
him, didn't sound like him.
yeah, it was originally called New Voyagers and then renamed Phase 2.
That's it. And I think DC Fontana did something for them,
Mm.
and I think Walter appeared in a show, maybe, and maybe somebody else appeared in a show. So the idea that Bill might appear in this one was far-fetched, but maybe because Vic knew him.
Yeah. I remember like there was a scene written because like both Deep Space Nine and Voyager did like anniversary shows, anniversary episodes, and Voyager's was called Flashback, and Sulu, George Takei appeared in that, and like similarly, like a scene was written for Nichelle Nichols as Uhura, but so it was scripted, but she doesn't actually appear in the episode, so it was like initially briefly considered, but then didn't go ahead.
Oh, I hear a beep in the back. Oh, okay.
Dan,
Here's Judy.
yep, I just instantly go if you go. So I'm back. He
Welcome
was talking
back.
about anniversary shows. Dan,
Dan?
Yeah, he's talking about
you,
anniversary show. There being like a Voyage episode called Flashback, where George Takei's Sulu appears, and a scene was scripted for Nichelle Nichols' Uhura to appear in that episode, but it didn't go ahead. So I thought it's a little bit similar to initially, like there was consideration to bring Bill Shatner into this episode, and that didn't go ahead.
yeah, probably. It's interesting because one of the last things I did was
Judy, you're breaking up. I guess I'll tell her in the private chat. Let's see. Private chat.
It's
and
it's a technical issue.
basically,
Oh, okay. Now I hear you. No.
and it crossed over Star Trek Next Generation and the original series, in which these
Sorry,
people were
Judy.
very old. And in fact, McCoy was on the verge of death when they transplanted him into a kind of a cyborg body, which impacted how he thought and made him almost more like Spock than was comfortable.
And this was a fan
so,
series.
no, it was, but there were 3 or 4 people at the studio who had some power, and they wanted an idea for a series, and so Star Trek Infinity was an idea that things were unraveling around the multiverses, so to speak. They were before this idea was ever made. This was when I was still at the studio, and the idea was that the people who were on the ship actually would go from place to place, kind of repairing the strings that were broken. And one of the characters was McCoy, but he was dying. He was old and he was dying, and they took his mind and put him into a kind of a cyborg cloned body, and it impacted how I thought. So there were characters in the show that were kind of akin to the old characters that visited, let's say, Next Generation or Voyager or what have you, but they were utilized in an entirely different way on Star Trek Infinity. And Star Trek Infinity went up to the top of the studio, and Rick Berman killed it.
Yeah, okay. See, I didn't realize this was a real Star Trek idea that just never saw the light of day. That's fascinating.
Yeah, well, there are a couple things like that. Like I went and pitched Star Trek Next Generation, and I pitched them the idea of the symbiote before the symbiote ever happened anywhere. And that Beverly Crusher had fallen in love with a guy who was inside another person, and they didn't buy it. And so this was early on in Next Generation. And so, well, it was not too early on because Braga and company were there. And so I went back and pitched it a second time to Michael Piller, and everybody's sitting around the room. And I go, I can't let this idea go because I think it's really a good idea. I think Beverly Crusher ought to fall in love with somebody who's got this thing inside of them that's actually another person. And she falls in love with the one that's inside. And they all kind of stared straight ahead and went, well, we're doing that. And I went, oh.
Oh, you pitched it, but they were already doing it?
No, they stole it.
They stole it. You didn't get a story by credit. You should have at least gotten a story by credit for that.
Yeah, you would, but like I told you, it doesn't work that way in town. They all just looked embarrassed, and Michael Piller stared at his 2 story editors like, what the hell did you do? Because I had prefaced it with saying, I came here a month ago and pitched this idea that I can't get rid of. I think we should do blah, blah, blah. And then he looked at me and looked at them and said, we're doing it. And he knew what had happened. And I just picked up my papers and said, thank you, and walked out.
No, I'm so sorry that happened. Gosh, I had no idea you came up. I can't believe you came up with the idea of the Trill. Thank you for doing that. I really think the Trill, that's a really great, interesting alien species. And what a good idea for a show. I enjoyed that
That's why I couldn't
episode
get rid of it.
that you came up with.
Yeah, it was
And
really sad. I never worked for him again.
and yeah, it's really sad that they did that to you, and it's unfortunate that they didn't work with you properly, because then we could have gotten more ideas. That would have been good.
Yeah, I was working at MacGyver at the time, and
Mhm.
so it was not, too critical to my career, but it still was very painful to watch that happen.
For sure, man. It, yeah,
I know strange things happen in town, don't they?
they do. Branko wants to remind people to subscribe, hit the bell, share, hit like, and select live chat. Eugene Bird says, I am subscribed as many times as YouTube lets me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
A multiple personality.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm glad that that you worked on it, and that you got to contribute something to Star Trek Continues, because I think this is a really great fan series.
I do too.
And
I think Vic did an incredible job with it.
mhm.
And the last 3 episodes are very powerful. They really are.
Yes, they are.
Let's say
If you want to talk about the last episode, we're going to talk about it now if you want to stay with us. Um okay. I'll wait until I get a response. And in the
from
meantime,
Canada, Robert
okay.
Sawyer. Unbelievable. And the fact that they got John, I met him at one of the
Yeah.
Comic Cons. He's a great guy. And the fact that they got him to do this episode, and I understand why he did the episode, because it had a lot of meat to it. It was a good show.
Right. Yeah, it is. Okay, so the second episode we're talking about today is what ships are for.
That's the
And
episode.
yeah. So Kirk, in this episode, Kirk deals with a society of two worlds. One that's kind of an isolationist kind of world, and the other one who's struggling and a bit of a refugee situation. I have to help again. Hold on.
Both
Okay, so
episodes.
it first aired on July 30th, 2017. Yes, Dan?
Both episodes were award winning.
Yes. And I can,
They
I can
were.
see why. I mean, he really wanted to finish the episode, the series, and he had to do it fast because of what's the.
Oh. I'm not sure how that sentence was going to end, but yes, like Judy's mentioning.
So, Still Chance the Shadow won Platinum Awards.
It won a platinum award of what? Okay, now I'm having sound and audio issues from both of them, I guess. Does anybody hear either of them? Okay, so let's
Won the New Year category of the 2017 Burbank International Film Festival.
Okay, Dan, could you actually repeat that, because I didn't catch any of it except for something about a platinum award. All the rest got cut out.
6 of them, I think.
So, Still Chance the Shadow won Platinum Awards for 5 categories in the International Independent Film Awards. It won Platinum for Best Overall Webisode, Best Actor in a Leading Role, who was Vic, Best Sound Design, Best Special Effects Makeup, and Best Production Design. What Ships Are For won the New Media category of the 2017 Burbank International Film Festival.
Wow.
Wow, thank you so much, Dan, for bringing that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really great. And like Judy was saying, this one does have John Delancey, which is wonderful. When I saw the preview, I was like, oh no, they can't bring Q into this series. He's not supposed to show up for a while, but it's not Q. He's playing. I was very happy to find out he's playing a different character.
I thought it was kind of nice they got Doctor Who to come too. Tom Baker. In one of the first episodes. He's a big
I think it was
Big
Colin
Doctor Who?
Baker. Colin Baker, but yes, he's from Doctor Who.
Yes.
Um,
So I thought that was
I
cool.
I
I
get
love
the
Doctor
I get
Who.
the Bakers mixed up too, actually.
Um, so not that I want to get rid of myself, but do you guys want to go on to your other episode, or are you finished with this one yet?
We're finished with this one, but I want you to be able to talk about anything that you still want to talk about before you go. And Dan, did you have any other questions for Judy?
Not questions as such, apart from like I wondered if you wanted to stay on to talk about the next episode or not.
No, I just saw it, and I can say that I really, really liked it. I thought it had a lot of heart. And I understand why John took that episode on because it had so much philosophical backbone to it. It's a great episode, and it has a
Yeah.
surprise ending, which is not too much of a surprise for a scriptwriter. But the idea that John Delancey's character was actually married to somebody he disdained, but loved desperately, and finally finds out at the end was just a great twist. So the only thing that bothered me, I think, at all was that that obligatory Kirk kiss. Oh my God, we'll have one more ride for the show. I didn't think it was called for necessarily, but I understood why because she needed it more than he did. And like I said, even the line of "What are ships for" is a great line. The idea of whether you stay in harbor or go out to meet the world and change the world. It's just a great episode. I thought the last three
Yeah,
episodes were wonderful.
that's
Yeah.
a really great perception on that. That kind of bothered me too. I liked the past romance of your episode, which made sense as a certain history of Kirk. He does have a history of losing women due to career, but
Yes.
this one, it's just I didn't really buy the romance as much, even though of course the actress in this one is very beautiful. But
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's a bit
I
different.
I thought that, like I said, I'm an action adventure writer. They call me a shoot 'em up bang bang writer,
Mhm.
which allowed me to do character, but within the confines of entertainment, I guess you'd say. I love doing shoot 'em up bang bangs. I did a TJ Hooker in which Hooker's daughter is kidnapped, which was all about character. But once again, it was an episode in which there was a lot of action because I'm fond of it. I was raised on comic books. In fact, I raised myself on comic books. Hello, Superman. Um, and the episodes that came after Still Treads the Shadow were deeply character driven, deeply, deeply character driven. And I'm appreciative of that. I sat and was just wowed by them. I thought they were spectacular shows, extremely well written, and they went to my heart. So I'm glad you're dealing with the next one because it's such a good show, such a good
Yes.
one.
Yes, I'm covering 2 episodes per, and that's why next week I'll be covering the two-parter, the final two-parter, To Boldly Go, and can't wait to do that too.
Yeah, and the
And
writer on that is such a distinguished writer. I want to know how he got away with it. I mean, did he do the same thing I did, which was basically give up his money in order to be able to do those 2 hours?
oh, I don't know. But you
Because
gave a
he's
really fantastic synopsis of the next episode, so thank you so much,
yeah,
and a review of it. I agree with everything you said about it.
yeah, and I should let
And
you get on with it.
yeah, and, gosh, I
Being a great guest
thank you
today.
so much. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Judy, for spending time with us. I had an incredible time talking to you. Thank you
Ditto,
for everything.
as my granny used to say. I enjoyed talking to you,
Mhm. And,
and I will bow out, hopefully gracefully,
yeah, well,
and
yeah,
let you
usually
and come back to
whenever
see what you say.
I appreciate your conversation, and you're really wonderful to talk to. I won I wonder if you might wanna talk again about, if there's anything you wanna share before you go that you're working on. I know
Take
you're
it
working on
easy
your
and
book. Is
enjoy
there
this
anything
episode.
else going on? Oh, no. Every once in a while, Judy's connection drops. This is a terrible time for the connection to drop.
Yeah, subspace communications is a little bit hampered today.
Right? Okay. We gotta make a bridge. Oh no. Yeah, we had lots of duplicate Judys today. Let's see if we can get one more. But while we're waiting for that, I suppose we can start on the next episode. Trek lad. Oh man, I wanted to actually talk to her at the end there, but hopefully she comes back so I can properly say goodbye to her.
Yeah, it's been great to speak with her.
Yeah,
There was one
and she's
other
incredible.
thing. Yeah,
It-
there was one other thing that that our episode of Star Trek Continues reminded me of, which was I thought like there was some interesting parallels. Like Kirk reviving basically his or coming into contact with like the elderly version of himself in cryo, uh, and sort of like when he finds Khan in Space Seed and Khan being in cryo. I thought that was pretty cool. A cool
Oh
parallel there.
yeah, definitely thinking, just asking McCoy, how long is it going to take for you to thaw him? So, yes, I definitely did think about Khan too a little bit, and so that makes some sense for sure. But
Yeah.
but luckily, older Kirk didn't turn out to be some kind of megalomaniac or anything, so that's good.
Yeah, that was fortunate. Huh?
Yeah, it was fortunate. And it might have made some sense that something might have changed in him after all that time, and after all the resentment you think he would have built up after thinking he'd been betrayed by his own crew, his own family. He thought they left him for dead. And so that would have kind of you could almost buy him having some kind of feelings against that. But I'm glad it didn't happen.
I thought it was cool that Judy said that she worked on Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, like behind the scenes. And like really early in the chat, there was someone saying that today is an anniversary for the second Star Trek movie.
Yes, today is when it was released in theaters, right? The Star Trek Wrath of Khan was released June 4th, 1982. And not only that, there's another thing. So in 1999, on June 4th, Robert Meyer Burnett and Mark Altman made a movie that they also released on June 4th called Free Enterprise, which has William Shatner in it, which is a really great movie. Have you ever seen it?
I think a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool and fun.
Cool.
So RBM371 says, "Hail, lurking around a little while doing the chemo. Awesome stream. Made my time here much more bearable. Thank you." Oh, yeah. You're welcome, RVM. I'm so sorry you have to go through those treatments. That cannot be easy. I don't know anything about what it's like, but I hope whoever is with you is making things more comfortable. And I'm glad you're here. 42nd anniversary, says Franco Walker, which makes him feel old. And yeah, and Daniel didn't know that. And also, hello to Daniel. We just had a most amazing. Thank you, Dan, so much for bringing Judy on. That was one of the that was a highlight, not just of my day, my week, my month, my year. I don't know how far back I can go. So thank you, Dan. It was really incredible to talk to somebody who made real Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I wish that she had gotten a bit more respect when the Next Generation came around, because it sounds like she could have provided more insight into that had she not been rolled over like that. So I really appreciate you getting into contact with her. And Dan's the whole reason she is here. And and of course she's the reason she was here. She was grateful enough to agree to be on my dinky little show, and so I'm just so happy that she was able to make it here. And that
Yeah,
was
it
a
was
lot
cool.
of fun. That was so cool.
I thought it was even cool, like to hear like that she like yourself, I guess she regards Galaxy Quest as a Star Trek movie.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely a Star Trek movie. Well, now I have a creator on my side thinking that too. So so there you go. It is. It is totally a Star Trek movie. Just doesn't have the label. Star Trek movie without the label. And thank you, Dan, for bringing Judy along. Yes, yes, you're really great
You're
in that
welcome.
way, and I know I am very appreciative. But we do have another episode to talk about. So let's get down to
Yeah,
that
will
one.
we dive into it? Cool.
What ships are for? And so
First of all, um, McGuinness, and it's reminding me that there's an Alec Guinness in Star Wars, and they do actually reference, I think it's Star Wars Planet in this episode.
Oh, they do. Okay, so you're gonna have to fill me in on any Star Wars references because it's not exactly like I like it. I like Star Wars, but I'm not so much of an expert. I need to learn a few things. So if you see something like that, let me know so I don't miss it because I totally missed that. I watched this whole episode. I didn't know. So the teleplay was for this one was written by Kipley Brown with the story starred by credits to Vic Mignogna, James Kerwin, and Kipley Brown too. And it was directed by Vic Mignogna, so he does a lot in this episode. Makes sense. See. So of course, as mentioned several times already, John Delancey does make an appearance here as the leader of one of the planets.
Yeah, and he appears along with an actress called Anne Lockhart who played Sheba in the original Battlestar Galactica. I found out this guy appears in. I was reading about all his production credits, and like he appears in the X Files and like so many like science fiction series. He appears in Aliens. He's just got so many.
Did you get his name? What's his name?
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, I'm gonna find it because I want to know. We've got the library computer here, so let's find out.
Cool.
All right. So, do you remember his name in the episode itself?
I wish I could.
You know what? I have the script, so let's bring the script up.
Cool. I thought also it's cool that you see like in the background, like San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, and they refer to like him wearing JAB uniforms and stuff like that. And they say like, imagine if us like the crew wore JAB uniforms, you know, for running the motion picture.
Yes,
obviously.
I thought that was a really cute reference. Yes, to the motion picture. Later on, it was well, and it was a way to have a good little quip. And the name of this character is McGuinness. So, and then the actor's name is Mark Rolston, and he said he was on X Files. Cool.
Yeah, he's on X Files and Aliens and quite a few different things.
Yeah. So So they get a distress call from this asteroid. So there's some where you have a civilization that has some, they say, limited warp capable. I'm not sure why the warp is limited. Maybe they can only do warp 1 or something. I don't know what the limitations are. And it's interesting to have an inhabited asteroid rather than just planets. So that's fun to get a bit of difference on that. And so they're figuring out what's going on. Oh, they mentioned the hood too, because that's still a thing that they don't know what's going on with that. And I guess that's also going to come up in the last episode, right?
All right, cool. And I know it's Kirk there mentions Ms. Chapel, and I recently listened to an interview with Vic where he was talking about who is it that plays the counselor?
Oh, the counselor?
Yeah.
McKenna.
Yeah, but what's the actress's name?
Oh, actress for McKenna is Michelle Specht.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So he was talking about, in the interview, he was talking about her and how initially they considered should you play Christian Chapel, should you play Rand, Yeoman Rand. So yeah, that was initially considered before they settled on her role as the counselor.
That would have been interesting for her to do Rand, because that would mean Rand came back to the ship. Maybe it would be interesting to see what would have happened to her, what would have brought her back. But I think it's best that they made her a brand new character, so she's not everything in the show is tied to the past. So it's great that they pay respect to the past, but it's also fun to get a few new elements, and I think it really works.
Yeah.
To have her as a new counselor, since that is a new position, and right. So that is fun to learn about. That Nurse Chapel is off at Starfleet Medical learning how to become a doctor. And because we know by the time we get to the motion picture, she is. And so that's something everybody's telling me. The last 2 episodes have a lot to do with setting up the motion picture.
Yeah, it was originally to have been 13 episodes, but then they decreased it to 11. Which was after and Vic, clearly in the interview, he has great respect for Paramount and everything like that. That he I think that was after the incident that happened with the Axonar project.
Yeah.
That led to the Randalls.
Yeah. SP4H, hey, how are you doing? He says baffle plate ruptures. Shut down the firing range then. It sounds painful. I don't know what that is exactly. What is baffle plate? A baffle plate is a component of warp cores, damage to which could be catastrophic. Okay, so that's from Memory Alpha. So it's part of the warp core. Makes sense. Okay. Well, I'm glad they went for something that's real. I mean, not real, but real within the context of the show. And glad that Nurse Chapel is off getting her doctorate. And the Halani are not, they don't like, they're outside, they're isolationists. They don't want any help. Except for, that's how you know they really need help, is that they're asking for help. because otherwise they wouldn't be contacting anybody. And that's why the Enterprise, they don't really know much about them. And so we have the opening credits. That's the teaser. What ships are for? And so
Yeah,
the landing party gets onto the asteroid, and the first thing is like everything is in black and white because their vision is being limited to monochrome colors because they're some radiation is keeping them from being able to see color. It's blocking the cones in their brain and their eyes that register those colors. So it's not that anything isn't actually in black and white. It's just the way that the crew sees the world, the way that the people on the planet see the world.
and how we, the viewers, see the world.
Yes. And so we see the world through their eyes.
It's always a little bit like the Captain Proton stuff in Voyager.
Oh yeah, Captain Proton. Oh man, I loved Captain Proton. That's probably one of
I
the
also
best
thought,
things in Voyager.
yeah, I also thought it was really cool. Kipley Brown, who often plays the helmsman or an officer, actually wrote this episode, and Vic directed it.
Oh. Wait, can you say that? Oh yeah, he did. Definitely he did. SP4H says in Star Trek terms, baffles are used on firing ranges. It was an inside joke that only I found funny. Baffle jokes, baffle chat. A very inside joke. Thank you, SP4H. And so, yeah, so I was kind of curious why they did black and white when we just saw the teaser last week. I was like, oh no, what are they doing? That doesn't make sense. And now it does make sense. So they did a good job of figuring out how to do a black and white episode and not be weird about it. It's good. I wish they did more Captain Proton on Voyager because then after that they did some weird thing in an old town. Like I hate Fairhaven. When they did Fairhaven after Captain
Yeah,
Proton, it was terrible.
and I know it wasn't popular. I always wanted them to do like they did like modern Star Trek did short tracks. I always thought it would be cool like if they did some Captain Proton on that, but they didn't. So whatever.
I have to help my daughter with something, and
Oh, okay.
I will be stepping away for just a couple of minutes. If you want to talk about something, anything you like, just for a couple of minutes. She really wants something, and you know what? It's summer. I gotta facilitate the fun just a little bit. It's so she wants me to print something out for her, and I'm gonna do that. I'll be right back.
Cool.
Bobby. I'll, Bobby.
I agree with Daniel saying I love Captain Proton and his arch nemesis Chaotica. It was quite fun. Hopefully just now Jill isn't turning into a high-noid biped. That's apparently described on the screen.
Kill!
Yeah.
But I feel like celebrating.
I agree with Keith. It's time to seize control of the basketball. Not. Maybe best not to do that. Or might end up like Captain Burnham, being put in a prison in maybe New Orleans, not New Orleans, New Zealand, perhaps, like in Caretaker Voyager. It's Captain Crunch who's referred to in the chat. It's Captain Crunch only like in a serial. I'm familiar with Captain Crunch being in a serial, But is Captain Crunch a character in his own right? Like out with the cereal? Perhaps you can tell us in the comments. I also wonder if John, the actor's name is John Delancey. I wonder if the DE might mean off a particular place, perhaps. Like Leonardo da Vinci, the the D part in Leonardo da Vinci means off the area known as Vinci in Italy. Keith E points out that Captain Crunch had Smedley delved into, so I don't think he was a real character. I'm not familiar with Smedley. Is that a real character? And John Delancey's son appeared in Voyager, playing Q Jr. I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I love all of the Q episodes.
I
They're
thought
all
actually son. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I just got back. Thank you so much for holding the fort for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had to print out
I
some.
was thinking as well. Like
My daughter
some
wanted some
that's
bricks
really
designs for her
the
blocks. Sorry, you keep cutting out. Captain Crunch had Smedley the elephant, so I don't think he was a real
the very
character.
first Voyager episodes called Death was written by Michael Puller's son. Well, co-written by Michael Puller's son.
Oh, Mike Pillar's son. Wow. Yeah, that's really great. Let's block Jill from her own stream. You can't do that.
I don't think so. I don't think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
Good.
Franco, I gave you a compliment on Retro Nerd Girl on Sunday. I said I would never be as good as you. Oh, he means like as a wrench, and Franco Walker is a wonderful wrench. Thank you so much, Franco Walker, for being here, and thank you too, Keith E. You're really, really, really great. And so they land on the planet. Everything's black and white. Let me see where I am in my notes so we can figure this out. Where we are. Oh right, I do love this part of the episode where the lady thinks that Spock. Oh, you look different. Are you the female of your species? And McCoy says, if human females look like that, we'd go extinct. It's a cute line. And I know that I do know that Dan was talking about something completely different. I'm sorry, Dan, that I didn't respond to what you were saying. It was because you were all broken up and I couldn't hear anything. Oh, okay. Okay, Dan, I just wanted you to know I wasn't ignoring you. I just couldn't hear you. I'm gonna kick your duplicate. Hello?
Sorry, I engaged my cloaking device.
Okay. Okay, for how long? Okay, well that's fine.
5 kilograms.
Huh? What'd you say?
5 kilograms.
Oh, okay. That'll be fine. Keithy says, okay, meanwhile, back at the ranch, Jill continues. Yes. And so, okay, so the name of the leader of the planet, played by John Delancey, is Gallisti. And the lady who thinks Spock is a girl is Thais. But she's really embarrassed when she finds she was incorrect.
Yeah, so Thayer's
And
talking about earlier, the actress was in the original Battlestar Galactica.
oh, she was. Did I even mention? I was so excited talking to Judy. I think I completely forgot to mention that actress was from Battlestar Galactica too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Rika Sharma.
Yes, she was. She was in Battlestar Galactica also, but I think it just kind of got drowned out because it was such a blast talking to Judy. I think I completely skipped that in my notes. But thanks for finding that out here. So she was there. She was in Battlestar Galactica too. That's really great. That Vic can find these actors and actresses that were in science fiction. That's in some cases.
Yeah, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Rika Sharma was in like the reboots or Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, the reboot. Yes, she was.
Not the original
And
one.
so you're saying that this one, it was Thais, the actress for Thais, was in the original Battlestar?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's from the original Battlestar, and in the last episode we had somebody from the Ronald D. Moore Battlestar Galactica from 2005.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Good work. But we gotta have her name. So what's her name? This is played by Anne Lockhart.
Lockhart.
Yes.
Apparently next you're going to be interviewing Shatner. James has heard this as.
Oh, next Jill is going to interview Shatner. Well, he says he doesn't do podcasts, so I'm not even going to ask. But if he asks me, I, of course, am going to allow William Shatner is welcome on my live stream anytime he likes. I'll be sure to ask a lot about horses and things. And anything he wants to talk about, we'll talk about it. But
Horses and Share of it on Jill's channel.
yeah. Why not? But yes, great to see you. James Caserta also. Welcome back to the stream. It was good to see Anne Lockhart, June's daughter. Yes. Did I? Hold on just a moment. Let me check something real quick. Yeah, I did. All right, just double checking.
It's true that a few Star Trek stars and guest stars appeared in The Lieutenant.
That's true. Yes, correct. Now Shatner wants to return to Trek. He does? So Gallisti and Thais are not just diplomats together, they're also married.
Makes it a pleasure of business.
What's the question?
It's hard to encapsulate in the question, but it seems like they're mixing pleasure with business.
Yes, they are. Well, if you're good enough teammates, it shouldn't matter.
Mm.
If you can get it done, you get what's important done.
I know
Seems
some
fine.
people have a real issue with that.
Yeah, conflict of interest. I can
Mhm.
understand.
Mhm.
And they can't exactly describe color to them, but they try.
Yeah, I've seen some really
They're
cool
just kind of
poster art.
yeah.
I've seen some really
So
cool like poster art that's like mixed up like based on this episode. That's like combined both the black and white looks and the color.
mhm. Yeah, I think it looks really great. So this society, they want to be utopian, but obviously there's some issues with. I mean, this guy's they're isolationists, so they're so upset at having visitors that one this person is threatening to unalive himself.
The
And
guy threatening to shoot himself in the head sort of reminds me of um is it I think it's maybe the Terra Prime Demons two-parter in Enterprise.
mhm,
The Starfleet officer who threatens to shoot himself in the head with a phaser. Or a face pistol, I should say.
yeah. All right. And they have a disease here, and the disease is going rampant. People are dying, and Kirk knows that they can help heal him if they only go onto the ship. Or McCoy knows, rather. Makes more sense. And it turns out it's a product and of the radiation that's coming from their sun, the same radiation that is that keeps them from being able to see color is now killing them. And it's killing this new character. She wants to be a doctor also. What's her name? Um
I remember it starts with an S.
So yes, Sakara. Sakara. I just had to look through my notes to find it.
Mhm.
Sakara has a disease and she's gonna be dead in a year. And well, they don't know what it is, but I already told you. It's the radiation. And oh yeah, McCoy. That's his theory, and he confirms it back on the Enterprise. But Kirk is worried because she's never seen color before, and that she might experience some trauma, which is accurate. That's exactly what happens. The woman is Anne Lockhart, who played Sheba on the original Battlestar Galactica. Hello, class. Yeah, welcome back, Classic Comics. That's right. I got a fever. I hope you feel better soon. Classic Comics says, love this episode. One of the best fan episodes I've ever seen. Yeah, this is a powerful one. This is a good one. Definitely. I enjoyed the symbolism of not being able to see things clearly. That's used in relation to the prejudice and the isolationism of the people and uh, and their relationship towards the other planet or the other asteroid who needs help because they have the radiation sickness too, but they've had it for longer, which is why their society devolves into kind of a war and and so they're struggling, and
I thought it was a little bit
this
like
other planet doesn't understand. Yes.
I thought it was a little bit like Patterns of Force, with Ecos and Zion, or like Symbiosis in the Next Generation. Symbiosis, however you say that word. With the two different like humanoid species, and
Is
like
that the one? Is that the one where one is doing drugs
yeah,
and then the other one is manufacturing the drugs and
yeah,
keeping the other society addicted so that they can do all the other work, and so that
yeah,
the other planet can just do whatever they want and
yeah.
play. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a pretty good episode. Yeah, that's kind of a similar setup diplomatically.
Or even like the what is it? I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, sorry. But yes, and it's true. She is surprised to see her purple hair and all of that. She's surprised we're sea color. And excited too. She gets really curious about it and wants to learn all the different colors. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of cute. The woman, yeah, okay. We read that one. Sorry about that. Not literally. I just need some cowbell. Oh, that kind of fever. Actually, I'm in tip-top health right now. I think it's linked to emotions. Ooh, good. That's good. Hey, well, use that. Use your emotions in your creative work. And I do like how the color doesn't come to her right away. It slowly paints into the black and white.
Color
Yeah.
like really appealed to me when I was like watching Star Trek, or like as a kid. Like the colors, like just the fact like you've got these guys on the bridge, like, and they're wearing like bright colors, like bright green, yellow, blue, red, and like really bright red and stuff on the bridge. Like, I found that really appealing as a kid to see. And I know like the intention
Yeah,
behind
agreed.
using colors, to that degree, was that at the time they wanted to help sell color TVs.
Exactly true. Yes. And so everything wasn't bright and lovely in this in TV shows in that time period, especially Star Trek and Lost in Space. When they got into color, they did the same thing in terms of using very bright standout colors.
Cool.
And it is pretty cool to see uh Kara in awe with all the colors around her also in that way. There is kind of a childlike wonder, like you're mentioning, towards it. So what are they called? The Hylanians. That's it. They don't have any way to block this radiation themselves, so they're going to need help from the Enterprise.
They kept talking about like we're going to fix the sun and stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
thought about that. Like, I wondered, like,
yeah.
is the sun like artificial or something?
I don't know, but yeah, that's right. They do. They fix the sun. They fix the sun. That is kind of strange. Let's
It's
see if
pretty
there's
cool that Kirk references Sulu's knack for botany from the Man Trap.
Yeah, he even mentions his pet the pet plant Gertrude. Yeah, they're a carnivorous sweeper that was in the room
Yeah.
when Rand was bringing Sulu his meal.
So there's Gertrude, and is there one called Butagard or something like that?
I don't know all of Sulu's plant pets.
Okay.
But yes, that is good that they use that part of his character because they do that before. They've done it before when mentioning how he studies firearms and he wanted to go to the museum to study more of them.
Yeah.
Beauregard.
Yeah, that was the name of the plant in the Mantrap.
Oh, that was the name of it. Okay. Gertrude must be a new one then.
Yeah.
Oops. And of course, the tricorder doesn't see the world like humans or other beings do, so it's able to bring in the color. And they find out that I don't know how they determine that one species is an alien or not. One is slightly greenish yellow in skin color with purple hair, and the other planet has orange people with more orange tinge to their color, like a bit like Oompa Loompas. So.
Or Trump.
Or yeah, I don't want to get into politics in this in this because
It's not politics. It's
not
just
good.
one guy. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about him.
Look
But
at
it is
the-
it is an interesting story.
What would you call?
I'm not sure how they actually determine just from skin color that there are aliens from another world.
A little bit like
That is-
an Orion.
Yeah, a little bit like an Orion, except Orions also have green hair. So Pike
Oh, yeah.
Kirk is canonically a different Kirk from Shatner. So that works for me. Well, Captain Pike is a different captain from Captain Kirk. I'm not sure what that is saying.
No, Pinekirk, meaning from the Kelvin films.
Oh.
The Kelvin movies is played by Chris Pine.
Gotcha. Okay. I was thinking, I thought he misspelled Pike for some reason. I didn't think about Pike. Chris Pine.
I know.
My brain doesn't want to think about that, probably. That's what it is. So that's, are you seeing? Yeah, so they somehow find out that they're different aliens. And these isolationists have been living with these other these refugees from another asteroid.
A bit like the same twist twice, basically, because like with Cicada, like there's the twist that she's not from Hylinus. However you say that.
That's right. She's not. She's from the other asteroid.
And then it turns out that also the ambassador woman, that's married to John Delancey's character.
Yes, and she's also from the other world.
Yeah. So they sort of do the same twist twice, which
they do. I like that. What did you think of that? I was. I think it was good because they have to deal with the same thing because these aliens have had to figure out how to move to a planet that it wasn't killing them as much as their planet was. And so it makes sense that a lot of them are going to be coming over. And the isolationist planet kind of is afraid of them. It's not because they see them as warmongering and dangerous and violent. And they don't realize that they've been living with them all this whole time. And so they really could have been working together this whole time. There was a misunderstanding. They didn't know that the other planet. Oh, what is the other? What are the other ones? What are the other ones called? It's in my notes, but I don't know. This is just a great episode. John Delancey has a wonderful performance in it.
And some of the material, some of the stuff, like in the script that he was playing, some of the material he got to play, I was like, in the hands of a different actor, like that could have like really bombed, I think.
but you know, he delivers like such a good performance that fortunately it doesn't.
Agreed. Yes, and yeah, he can strengthen something that maybe isn't very well developed and bring new life into it. I don't know how he does that, but he succeeds. Let's see where I
And
am
here
in
we
my
see like
notes. I lost my
Kipling
spot in my
Brown,
note. I keep losing my notes. What are you saying? I'm so sorry.
and that's no problem. If you go back a bit, there, yeah, that's cool that you see Kipling Brown at the helm there, who's written the episode.
Oh, I thought it was she. Okay, okay, I gotcha. I didn't realize that she's in navigation. That's the writer of the episode.
Well, yeah, at the helm station, you know, that's where Sulu sits usually. And the navigation station, navigation console.
Okay, well, that's really cool. What wonderful.
So
Well,
it's
that's
cool.
really wonderful.
She got to participate in the episode, and you know, at least those two different ways.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And so this is the other. These are the other aliens from the other planet, and hopefully now my notes will say who it is. Okay, I gotta find it.
I thought it starts with an A.
Yeah, it definitely starts with an A. And so the Hylanians have these weapon platforms, which are kind of cool. I like how those are built.
I don't remember them referencing shuttlepods, but here it says shuttlepods in the subtitles, which was as it referred to like the shuttlecraft in Enterprise. Usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of confused me too. That was really strange because we didn't see the shuttle bay opening, or we didn't see anything like that. But they're talking about their ships.
Mm-hmm.
The other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Franco Walker is right in saying like Kipley Smith plays Smith. No, Kipley Brown plays Smith. Sorry, I was getting confused.
Oh. Hold on just a moment. I lost my spot in my notes again. They could hypothetically be in a movie together as co-leads.
Chandler.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, yes. Vic Mignogna is among my honorable mentions. Jim Kirk's, along with James Crawley and Brian Gross. Thank you, Donnie. I hear that Constitution class ships are very fragile and they're not recommended to go into battle, says Daniel. All right. And that's the chat. Thank you guys. And as soon as I find my spot in my notes, whenever I get lost, it kind of takes a minute.
Regarding Constitution class ships in battle, I always thought it was fascinating that like behind the scenes they are they were designed and intended to be able to do a saucer separation that we then didn't see until like the next generation with the encounter at Farpoint. But the USS Enterprise, was it Apple? It was scripted or something like that. It was definitely like intended that would, you know, the Enterprise is supposed to be able to saucer separation. Like there was a whole sequence. Also, I remember seeing that was done in a concept illustration, at least one concept illustration from the motion picture, where also like the Enterprise is intended to separate the saucer.
Yeah, that's right. The idea to separate the saucer was originally in the original series, but they could never get
Yeah.
the budget, or they
Yeah.
couldn't actually figure out how to get it done. So I'm really glad that we finally got it.
Yeah.
And a few episodes of Next Generation. Really great. And so I finally found where I am. The
Cool.
Enterprise destroys the weapon station, the weapon platform, so that it doesn't destroy these defenseless ships, because these other aliens are not armed. They're just coming in, and so the obviously the planet is not happy with that. Okay, so these other aliens are called the Abetians, and they're trying to go onto Hylinius to escape their own world, their own world that's been destroyed by the wars that they've been having. And so the Hylinians say that the Abetians have caused their own problems, and now they're running away from their own issues that their own savagery caused. And so they sneak onto the planet. But of course, the Hylanians don't know that the Abetians are suffering the exact same radiation illnesses that they're just starting to experience.
Thank you so much for finding out the name of the missions, because
Yeah,
really it was.
it's
I was
not it's not that
hard to
memorable
say.
for whatever reason. For whatever reason, it isn't memorable. But
Yeah.
yeah. So Sakara is an Abetian, and so she talks about she's very she has ideas against the Abetians, thinking that they're savages and everything, and then she finds out that she's one, and she's in denial at first, of course, and
Yeah.
very upset. And so the Abetians have been making better and better weapons and using resources, polluting their planet and everything. And that's why the Halatians don't want them to move to their world. And Sakara was 10 years old when Abetians killed her parents, as far as she knows. But of course, we know that her parents were also Abetian. And the Hylians are just they're being very judgmental towards the other planet without actually knowing the full picture, which is the central message to the episode. Is not judging people without actually knowing the full story. Why didn't anybody just ask them, hey, what's going on?
Mhm.
And it turns out actually they've been communicating with them this whole time, because the Abetians move over to this planet, and they're peaceful, and they're just trying to live, and they seamlessly fit into the society without the Halatians knowing, or the Hylians knowing, just based on their own temperament, because it just turns out everybody wants to be peaceful after all.
I thought it was
It's just
interesting you said earlier you prefer no politics. Well, I think this episode allegorically deals with politics a lot.
Oh yeah, it does. I don't mind talking about politics. I just don't want to talk about him in particular. But this episode does a wonderful job of talking about the issue of immigration, and when something is going on where some people have to flee their country due to something. In this case, it's the illness, and that's what led that society to go down a downward spiral in terms of war, and a kind of destruction of their, I don't know how damaged the planet is. But since at the end of the episode we do get the radiation issue solved, I'm wondering if some of them can maybe some of the Highlands can go to the other planet and help them rebuild their world, and so now maybe they can cooperate in a more um, um, I don't know how to exactly put it, a diplomatic way in which they can have the benefits of having two worlds that are more peacefully functioning and beneficial. Uh, because, of course, two different worlds. I don't know exactly what the other asteroid looks like. Maybe it can provide something that the other planet doesn't have.
I also
And
thought
it
the building is really interesting.
the what?
If you go back to the design, I thought the design of the building was really interesting.
Oh, the plant? Or what?
The build, I think you've gone back too far.
Oh, I've gone too far. Okay, tell me when to stop. Because
Too
you're going to
far.
have to tell me that word again. What's it
The-
really interesting?
I just find it interesting.
What is
If
interesting?
you keep going,
All right. But yes, Sulu's doing his botany.
oh okay.
I like how nerdy he gets with it. And so he determines that future generations should be fine once they get all of this done. And they fix the radiation problem.
Yeah.
Oh, this. Okay,
Yeah.
you mean the building. You like the castle kind of. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
the domed roof on it really reminds me of their building. I think it's in right on the Rigel 7 flashback in the cage.
Yes, it reminded me of the cage too. Very well done. I wonder what this was about. I should have looked into that more. Pretty great. It looks good.
Mm.
Agreed. It's interesting. And Kirk is telling them what's going to happen now that they're going to see color. They're going to realize they've been mingling with others from the other world this entire time, and that the Betians have been, of course, pretty peaceful after all, and that it's okay to keep people out if they're being violent, but don't judge people until you really know what their deal is.
Well, I
And
thought John Delancey's character to be very conservative in his politics.
why not help them instead of shooting at them? Because granting entrance to some is an invitation to all, and they're worried. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily it's probably meant to be, but really it's just I like that they don't draw those lines as overtly as that. They just make it a society who's afraid that the other society is going to bring their violence over to their world, and so it's presented in a non-hammy way. They don't just say, "Oh, um, these are conservatives, these are liberals, and these are good, and these are bad." They don't do that kind of bullshit. So I'm really happy with the way that the episode presents it in a non-partisan kind of way. This could be just any society who is afraid of who is just an isolationist in general, which is not necessarily conservative nor liberal in my understanding. So that's why I don't want to delineate that kind of thing. And Kirk tells him his defense system is excessive, and it is. You're just shooting at everybody who's trying to get by. That is pretty crazy. And so then I do like just the hopefulness of the end, in which it seems that they get over it pretty quick. And usually this kind of thing isn't that easy. But that's the hopefulness that is usually in Star Trek, which really works.
Like he just, like I said, like I think he's really conservative. I think he just wants to hold on to like the past. I don't think that's a bipartisan thing. I think a bipartisan thing is a modern concept. There are more than two, but in the literal sense, conservatism is having an attachment to the past. So I think that John Delancey's character is very much like that.
Yes.
But,
they have a sort of connection with their ideals of what they think previous generations wanted in the world.
Yeah.
And they go based on what's worked before. In general, that's the case. And Sakara has to learn that, obviously, now that she knows she is a Bishan, that they're not so bad. That the way that her prejudice is wrong. And that's just something everybody learns in this episode. It's not too much. It's not too complicated of not too complicated of a message story, but it works.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of, in their stylings, they kind of remind me of their Ghanaians as well. The cloaks and stuff.
The way they're dressed.
The way they're dressed, like the way that they have this big, quite imposing building, like their Ghanaians have castles sort of thing on top of the hill or wherever.
Mm-hmm. And the Hylians have a good foundation for having a good society. They just need to, accept friendship with the other world, and everything's going to be great. That's all they had to do, and it works out.
The Hylini.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice castle. I agree, Daniel's Hot Topics. I think I'm going to look into where that castle is after this, if I got a minute.
It looks CGI to me.
You think it's CGI? Oh, let's find out. Yeah, we're going to find out in a little bit. I'm going to try anyway. I might not succeed. Excuse me. But yeah, there's a little compassion will help out, and that's what works. Especially, and I think it actually helps. I did like that the wife wasn't a Bishan. That really helps with John Delancey's character, to help him have a reason to change and see a different side than what he's been thinking this entire time, through having that color blindness. And I think it's very symbolic.
Is this Kara his daughter?
No, her parents died.
Okay.
In a when probably when she was trying to move to Hylani, because she has a different, she was told a different story, and I think it wasn't exactly the way that she was told, since her parents were a Bishan, and that yeah, probably one of those weapons platforms took them out.
I expected and hoped that this sort of weapon might be more sort of recognizable from something else, but I couldn't. It wasn't familiar to me.
I haven't. That's another. Yes. Does anybody in the chat recognize this weapon that they're using? Kind of actually, it was more like an engineering tool, but a very dangerous engineering tool. Oh, there was a line from Kirk I copied down here that I forgot to say. Safety and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Conscience requires balance. And I thought that sort of encapsulates the entire episode.
Great line.
Mhm. And of course, Delancey's character, Gallisti, throws it back in his face, though. He says, You're lecturing me about compassion and balance. And you condemn the many for crimes of none. Who do you think you are? But of course, Kirk has the stronger point here. Of course, Delancey delivers it wonderfully, but it's Kirk knows Federation values, and they work perfectly here.
I think it was probably in this scene where it was like, wow, this could have really been a failure if another actor than John Delancey had the same role.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, he worked it well.
and I think like there's a line in the previous episode that I really liked, which is where Kirk says, "What is a captain without officers or something like that? Like what is a without someone without followers?"
I didn't catch most of what you were saying. Can you repeat it?
In the previous episode, there's a line that Kurt has that I really like, which is something like, "What is a captain without officers, and what is
Oh,
a
okay,
leader without
gotcha.
followers?"
Yeah, okay, I remember that. What episode was on? Oh, that was the last episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, so when he had to live alone for so many years, for 60 years,
yeah.
he
This
began to
to
question,
really,
was he even still captain?
yeah, he talks about that. Yeah, this to me looked really strange. Like I've seen like some colorizations or colorizations on YouTube and stuff like that, and there's like some there's a some Doctor Who that's been colorized and stuff like that, and to me like always looks like really pastel-y. And I think because we've gone through like um black, seeing most of this episode, we see this planet black and white. Like for it to now be in color, like to me, it was like, wow, this doesn't look right. But it was difficult for me to um would adapt to it.
You thought it was jarring? I guess that makes sense. Right, and so it's like watching a series that's in black and white, and then the next season they turn to color.
Yeah,
It brings a whole different dimension.
yeah.
And gosh, yeah, so they find out that they've been living peacefully together all this time, so why not do it again? And keep doing it. And there's I don't know when it happens, but we get the reason for why this episode is called What Ships Are For. And the line is, a ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are for.
Yeah, I think Judy referred to that.
Oh, she did. Yes, absolutely.
I'm wondering, are you having a poll this time?
I did have a poll, but I'll look at it when we're finished with the episode.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, but what's really neat is, I mean, this was black and white, so they don't actually care about the color of each other. It's just they're just different aliens, and they're just prejudiced against each other regarding how they perceive the Abitians' lifestyle. And when they realize that the Abitians were just sick as they're becoming sick, because the Abitians were sick first, and so that's why their society fell before the Hylians. So then, now that there's that understanding, it is they understand they were wrong, and it's just hopefully they learned their lesson and they're all right.
Do you think like the Baku and the Sona, like they were originally one people?
Oh, yeah, maybe that's possible. Yeah. Um, that's a good question. Well, and maybe they used to all live on a planet, and maybe the planet got destroyed, and all that was left were these asteroids that were going around the sun, and they had to separate their population into both of those asteroids. But now I'm just making things up for the sake for your question. It's
Well,
possible.
it might be suitable for headcanon.
Yeah, we're putting some headcanon into the fan fiction. I like this idea.
It's all good.
Hmm. Yeah, and the whole thing about them also having the disease, I spoiled that early on because it helps relate and helps you understand what's actually happening. But this episode waits until the very end to reveal that, and I think that's really well done. And they're gonna move on, and they're gonna stop, judging each other. So that's good.
Yeah, it sort of reminded me of Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Like there's a line like
Yeah,
that's really the different. That's really why you've got such an issue with each other. It's like you're white on one side and black on the other side, and you're white on the other side and black on the other side.
yeah. Well, that one was about color, and
Yeah.
but the crux of it was, when do you decide to stop hating? And that one ended poorly. There was no happy ending in Let There Be Last Battlefield, whereas this one does have that happy ending,
Yeah.
or at least a hopeful, if not perfectly happy.
Yeah.
Because changing how you perceive others and the way you act around them is not something that's very simple to flip. So they're going to have to do a lot of work to work that out. But that'll be a thing. Good powerful episode of, and very very Trekky kind of ideas, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I enjoyed-
that's our 2 episodes.
Cool. I enjoyed both of them.
And like you said, there's the poll. Let's check out the poll.
Fantastic.
I'm going to share my screen. Franco says, I've noticed it's not nice to notice nice things. Headcanon on fanfiction. Gonna be thinking about that one for a month. Right, that's how you know it's a good episode, when you start building a world outside of the episode and think, hey, I want to know more about this. I want to know more about what's happening with this planet. How does it expand after Kirk and crew sail off into the next episode adventure? When I want more from an episode, that's how I know I found a really good one. And this one fits that bill.
Hopefully, we've presented, as Captain Not Finity says, a nice noticing of nice things.
Franco Walker said that. Oh wait. Oh yeah, no, he did say that. That's a nice noticing of nice things.
Yeah.
Oh, and Franco said that's a nice counselor. She is. She's very good. She's a good counselor. That's a nice castle, a nice counselor. So, anyway, let's look at our nice poll. Which episodes do you enjoy more? Still Treads the Shadow, or What Ships Are For? And so this one, usually there's a clear cut winner. That one has landslide winning over the other one, but this one is very evenly split today. We've got 47 who have chosen Still Treads the Shadow, and 53% have chosen What Ships Are For. Which makes sense, because I almost can't really choose between them. I think they're both really wonderful.
Yeah, so you'd agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with my own poll, but I think maybe I I might lean towards still tread the shadow because it was a little more, well, like Judy was saying, she's an adventure writer, and so I like the adventures. And what ships are for is more of a social commentary kind of and
Yeah.
society based, and I still enjoyed it. It's still really great, and John Delancey is incredible. But I liked going back to the Defiant. I like the artificial intelligence that Kirk has to defeat.
Yeah. They're both really good, really strong episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm. And that's our episode for today. And next time, we're going to talk about the very last episode, which I've never seen. It looks really, really great. It's called To Boldly Go, and it's a two-parter. And that is how Star Trek Continues ends. And so we're getting through. We got Star Trek Continues so quick because there are only 11 episodes.
We might have a guest or two for that as well.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, I'll talk to you about that when we can. That sounds amazing. Just check the chat. All right. So yeah. I think that's all I have for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging out, talking about Star Trek Continues. Still treads the shadows and what ships are for. And I have the preview for the next episode, To Boldly Go, which I'll leave you guys on. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Have a great week. Live long and
Yes,
prosper. Thanks to you, Jeff. Thanks to the folk in the chat. And thanks to Judy for coming on.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, chat. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan. And we'll see you next time. Friday is... What am I doing Friday? Friday's shore leave because it's my son's birthday. So I don't want to... I am busy doing stuff, wrapping presents and getting a party together. So I'm going to do a little less work on my channel for Friday. And so, bye, guys.
Learn all that is learnable.
And the ways our differences combine to create meaning and beauty.
It has always been easier to destroy than to create.
May we together become greater than the sum of both of us.
Well, now you have something new to think about. Carry on.
All right, move along. Done. Stop it. Get off of the things. Go outside. Get some food. It's like, it's a time of day where you live. Go do something. Shut up, Snoopy. I don't care. You smoke too much. Let's go. Let's go adventure. Let's go explore.
I thank you.
See you around the galaxy.